dapat po munang alamin or matukoy ang pangunahing problema ng bansa upang mapagtuunan ng pansin at mabigyan ng solusyon.
We should have specific goals, do research, and make a policy that is fair for everyone.
Walang problema sa pulisiya. Iayos lang ang pagpapatupad.
Bago patubas ang batas, pag-aralan muna gusto ng government.
Two things, clarity and execution. Both, you need the communication and monitoring. As simple as that.
Mandato ng Philippine Institute for Development Studies o PIDS na gumawa ng mga pag-aaral at pananaliksik ng mga pulisiya at programa ng pamahalaan at magbigay ng rekomendasyon sa mga mambabatas sa pagbabalangkas ng mga pulisiyang makakatulong sa ating bansa. Sinusulong ng aming ahensya ang evidence-based policy making upang bigyan diin ang kahalagahan ng pulisiya na batay sa datos at policy research na sumusuri sa tunay na kalagayan ng ating mga komunidad. Napakahalaga ng policy research, lalo na sa mga panahong dumadaan sa krisis ang ating bansa.
Kapag pulisiya ay pinag-aralan, susulong ang bayan.
In need of references for your research? Do you want a digital library that you can access for free anytime and anywhere? You don't have to look far. SERPI is here for you. SERPI is an online database of socioeconomic materials produced by the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, government agencies, research and academic institutions, and international organizations based in the Philippines. It is the country's first online repository of socioeconomic information, created for policymakers and development practitioners, researchers, educators, and students. To access SERPI, just visit the PIDS website and click the SERPI widget under the Databases tab, or type serp-p.pids.gov.ph. SERPI has a wide variety of materials such as journal articles, books, research papers, working papers, policy notes, audiovisual materials, and more. As of 2022, SERPI has more than 60 partner institutions contributing knowledge resources to the database. SERPI provides a comprehensive coverage of references encompassing 22 research themes: labor and education, gender and development, poverty, technology and innovation, trade and industry, and many more. On the enhanced website of SERPI, you can filter your research by keyword or author, publication type, research theme, or year published, all at the same time. SERPI has more than 7,000 publications and audiovisual materials that you can access and download for free. What are you waiting for? Visit SERPI now. Socioeconomic Research Portal for the Philippines, innovating knowledge.
Good morning, everyone. Can we request everyone, all of our guests, to please take your seats? Our program will begin in a few minutes. It's a wonderful Monday morning. It's great to see all of you. A lot of remarkable people in the crowd, some new faces, some old friends. We have a lot of time today to network and to reconnect. Again, our program is about to begin in a few minutes, so please take your seats. We've got plenty of time to socialize. Good morning. Please do take your seats. We hope you're having a wonderful morning so far. I think our VIPs, our panelists are all complete, so we can't wait to start. Good morning once again, everybody. We are now... Hi, sir. No kissing, just sitting down for this morning. All right. All right, how's everybody doing? Well, good morning once again. We are now live on Zoom, and we warmly welcome our online participants joining us for Seizing the Shift, Navigating Trump's Reciprocal Tariffs. We are thrilled to have you with us virtually and appreciate your participation, even if you couldn't join us on site here at the Bangko Sentral's Nara room. We do look forward to engaging with you during the discussion. And again, for those of you joining us physically here on site, if you haven't registered yet, please do head over to our registration table. Don't forget to pick up your feedback form as well once completed. After the program, you may return it to our ushers or the registration booth to receive a conference giveaway as PIDS's simple token of appreciation. Please, we'd like to make this as engaging, as interactive as possible. Do join the online discussion by using our official hashtags, hashtag PIDSXBSP Forum and hashtag ASEAN Trade and hashtag Terrifying Talks. Thank you. And now we're ready to dive into today's insightful discussions. Good morning, everyone. May we kindly request everyone joining us here inside the Nara room to settle down. Take your seats as we begin our program in a few moments. Let's all direct our attention to the screen.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. You are now at the Bulwagang Bangko Sentral, located at the 19th floor of the multi-story building. Your safety is our priority. Please be reminded of our emergency evacuation procedures. In case of emergency, please stay Good day, calm. Ladies and gentlemen. Guests such as senior citizens, to the Bangko Sentral ng persons with disability, you are now and others shall be assisted by our located at the 19th floor of the multi-story building evacuation. Your safety is our priority. There are emergency exits. Please be reminded at both ends of the evacuation procedures. Familiarize yourself with emergency evacuation plan calm. Posted in guests such as senior citizens, in the event of an earthquake, persons with disability, pregnant women and others shall be assisted by our designated event officers. Be aware of your surroundings and cover your head from there are emergency exits located at the shaking ends of the hall. Evacuate from the building using the CSP emergency evacuation plan. Avoid using the escalators and in the event of an earthquake, dock fast but cover while covering your head under a sturdy table or desk towards the evacuation area. Be aware of your surroundings and cover your head from possible falling debris. You may re-enter the building when the shaking has stopped. The authorities declare evacuate from the building using the safest and the fastest way out. Kindly approach your
All right. Welcome again, one and all. Good morning. How's everyone doing? You know, we like a noisy crowd. We can feel the excitement. Well, it is a sunny mid-May morning in post-midterms Philippines. What is the headline you woke up to today? Did anyone read the news before heading here? Is it Trump extends deadline for 50% EU tariff? New York Times. Is it the Pope appoints Cardinal Tagle as Bishop of Rome's Diocese in Albano? Inquirer. Or shipping bottlenecks in Europe sent a warning signal to US and Asia. A new report suggesting trade wars could spread maritime disruptions at key hubs and push up shipping rates into July. Bloomberg. Is it AI system resorts to blackmail when its developers try to replace it? This is, of course, referring to Cloud Opus 4 threatening to expose a fabricated love affair when it believed it was being taken offline. Fox News. Or is it, how is the Federal Reserve reacting to Donald Trump's trade war? Financial Times. Or Marcos to press Philippine case at Kuala Lumpur Summit? The Manila Times. Well, the world is in flux, basking in the after-inflation glow, but worried about stagflation. Central banks under pressure to keep policy loose. Corporations caught between Trump's terrifying shock and terrifying pain, not sure exactly where policy stands with all the flip-flops. So how are companies planning for an uncertain future? How should Philippines Inc. engage? Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Hybrid Policy Forum, Seizing the Shift, Navigating Trump's Reciprocal Tariffs. It is a delight to be with all of you today. I am Mimi Ong from the ABS-CBN News Channel, and it is a pleasure to be your host and moderator for today's discussion. Now, this event is proudly co-organized by the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, or PIDS, and the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, bringing us together at a pivotal time to discuss critical global developments and their implications for the Philippine economy. Now, today's conversation will center on what President Trump has described as the most beautiful word in the dictionary, and the word is tariffs. Seeking to remake the global economy, Trump triggered a trade war by unleashing a sweeping array of tariffs, and his penchant for imposing and then suspending them has shaken markets and confounded partners all over the world. It has been hard, a nightmare, to keep track of the state of tariffs, but today we will try. So here's what we hope to achieve in the next 3 hours. We hope to, 1, assess the impact of the U.S. reciprocal tariffs and their spillover effects on the Philippines and our ASEAN peers. We hope to identify high exposure and high potential export sectors for repositioning. We hope to explore integrated policy responses to promote export resilience and supply chain participation. And we hope to strengthen public-private collaboration to craft a unified and strategic response to these global challenges. Now, through the insights shared today, we aim to produce actionable recommendations and foster greater alignment among stakeholders to ensure the Philippines not only adapts to these changes, but thrives and wins within them. We encourage you again to join the conversation, be heard, be seen online. Just don't forget to use our hashtags, hashtag PIDSXBSP Forum, hashtag ASEAN Trade, and hashtag Terrifying Talks. We will gauge how young and hip the audience is through our hashtag use online. Thank you again for being here. We look forward to an engaging and productive discussion. And now we begin our program officially. To kick it off, let's all warmly welcome and give a round of applause to Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Officer in Charge. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm round of applause for Deputy Governor Zeno Ronald Abenoja as he delivers his welcome remarks.
Thank you, Michelle. Good morning. The governor would have wanted to attend this morning's forum. In fact, he's very excited given the series of meetings and conferences he has attended regarding particularly this topic that we have today. But he left a welcome remarks, which I will deliver to start this morning's forum. So if I can, colleagues from the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, headed by its president, Dr. Orbeta, representatives of partner government agencies, including the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, led by our monetary board members, MBM Romy and MBM Jojo, partners from the wider research community, industry leaders, and members of the academe, good morning. It is an honor to welcome you all to today's Policy Forum. This is a valuable opportunity to discuss the pressing issues of the day, including how shifting global trade dynamics may impact the Philippines. It is fitting that this forum is organized by the PIDS, our leading policy research institution in government. In recent discussions with the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank in Washington, the governor underscored a growing concern. Trade shocks are more damaging than supply shocks. That was one of the quotes that was attributed to him during the discussions in Washington, D.C. Unlike your usual supply shocks, which tend to be transitory, trade shocks have deeper, more persistent effects. In particular, trade shocks affect the capital stock of developing economies. Left unchecked, they can slow growth trajectories and erode decades of hard-won progress. Today, unprecedented policy shocks are fueling a befuddling kind of uncertainty. Monetary policy alone cannot fully shield the economy from the repercussions of shocks. Broader, coordinated strategies would indeed help. Fortunately, the Philippine economy is now well positioned to manage inflation. Headline inflation eased to 1.4% in April 2025, well within the BSP's forecast range of 1.3 to 2.1%. This gives us extra degrees of freedom to ease monetary policy and support growth. The BSP stands ready to do what is necessary to keep inflation steady and maintain the country's macroeconomic stability. Today's discussion will help us chart our path forward. I look forward to fresh perspectives on how we can successfully navigate this perplexing uncertainty. Thank you, and I wish everyone a productive and insightful forum. I join the Governor and our MDMs in welcoming everyone to BSP. Have a productive day ahead. Again, thank you.
Thank you, DG Abenoja, for your insightful remarks and for giving us thoughtful foundation for today's discussions. And congratulations again, sir, for the appointment. Now, as the global trade landscape shifts, marked by rising tariffs, supply chain reconfigurations, and intensifying US-China rivalry, let's now explore the challenges and opportunities these shifts present, especially for ASEAN economies and the Philippines. Live via Zoom from the United States of America, the ground zero of the tariff war, our keynote speaker will provide a comprehensive discussion on global trade recalibration and the Philippines' strategic choices. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Rodrigo Balbontin. He's the Associate Director at the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation with extensive expertise in trade, intellectual property, and digital technology governance. Mr. Balbontin has held key roles at the Asia Foundation, World Bank, and OECD. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving him a warm welcome, Mr. Rodrigo Balbontin. He can hear us. Rodrigo,
Yes.
hi.
Thank you for the warm welcome. Good morning, everyone. Yes, I'm in Ground Zero. I'm in Washington, D.C. So thank you for the invitation. Thank you to PIDS. Thank you to Bangko Sentral. As you mentioned, I've been many times in the region. I have experience working in Southeast Asia, in ASEAN, and all the alphabet soup of different ASEAN divisions and organizations. So I'm keen to also be supportive of the Philippine chairmanship for next year. And today I would like to share about some of ITIF work and or view on the trade war and America, the industrialization that can be helpful for the Philippines. So a bit of context. First of all, I'm going to present about my organization is ITIF, Information Technology and Innovation Foundation. We are a global think tank based in the United States. We're independent, mostly focused on technology policy and innovation. So our view from the trade war is based on basically strategic industries and innovation. And we our research focus on all the extent of technology policy, from life sciences, IT and data, regulation, antitrust, broadband, and many others that are not here listed. But I will invite everyone to check our website, itif.org. And today's presentation, as I mentioned before, first of all, giving to the Philippine audience a bit of context about why the Trump administration is doing this. What is the underlying rationale? Despite if the action itself are correct or not, there is some symptoms that were being accumulated through decades, and that is particularly through the deindustrialization and the offshoring of the manufacturing. Then, of course, I'm going to talk about the most beautiful word in the alphabet, tariff, tariff, tariff. And then some of our views of what the Philippines should do on the negotiations. And then share some final reflection based on our work here in our think tank. So first, I think it's important to understand that despite what I'm going to mention about the symptoms of what led America's isolationism and this wave of deglobalization pushed by mainly the United States, but also was fed by other trade irritants and trade imbalances. My view is that the trade war ultimately will harm the American economy. The United States will be a smaller economy than, and the global economy will be smaller than without this trade war. So I want to start by that not very optimistic landscape, but just to give a context of a narrative of dissatisfaction over the loss of U.S. manufacturing output and job that also it's compounded by geopolitical tensions. So this is basically what our research has been focused on lately. We developed the Hamilton Index. Hamilton, besides being a great singer in a musical in Broadway, is one of the founding fathers of the United States, and also he was envisioning the country as a big superpower, economic superpower. So we developed this index basically to compare how much the top 40 countries, the Philippines included in this analysis, the share of global output in advanced industries. I will describe later which are the advanced industries that we are focusing on. And we discovered first that China's rises is even more pronounced when you just analyze advanced industries. And then you can also see clearly that the United States had been deindustrialized, and I think this figure represents very well the core of the problem. On the one hand, we see here in blue the rise of China, the rest of the world, which is basically the other economies listed, is practically flat. Some other countries, such as Italy and Germany, has been steady or in slow decline. But we can see also that the United States basically never recover after the peak in the 90s and early 2000s, and then after the Great Recession, basically the share of the United States in advanced industry, this is only advanced industries globally, basically never recover, and this portrays very well the deindustrialization of the American economy. We divided this and also by different sectors, and we can see also that even that basically the few flatline that we can see in the last decade is basically sustained by IT, but without the IT sector, basically the global share of the non-remembered industries will have been much lower. And basically IT, this is basically big tech and all of the great innovation that we have seen in the last decade, help to offset the decline in other industries. Here are the 10 industries, and we developed another index within the Hamilton Index, which is called LQ, the location quotient, which shows how concentrated a country in advanced industry output is relative to the global average. In other words, if it is above 1, that means that the country is overperforming in a specific sector or in average, and if it's below 1, it is because it's underperforming compared to the average of the rest of the world. And we can see here basically what many people have this basically the view that the US champions are big tech industries, pharmaceuticals, and other transportation is basically aerospace. And then you have some semiconductor industry and computer and electronics that are in the margins of one. But then basically those are the big champions of the American economy. And in the rest of the industry, you don't see that as it was before 20 decades ago, even 10 decades ago. The United States have very few sectors, very few companies that are actually top in the world competitive vis-a-vis other ones, mainly Chinese companies. Even though in market share, of course, the United States companies are dominant in the global industry. Here is the global landscape. There are more countries in this index, but I had to cut this for space. But you can see that the Philippines is a bit below one. This is basically averaging all the 10 sectors and weighting by the size of the economy. So basically, the question is the Philippines pushing above its weight or not? It's a bit in the average, but we can see also that the United States is below basically what it can produce given its size, and also we can see that the main are small countries plus Korea and Japan, the ones that are overperforming here in our index. So basically, long story short, America, the industrialization is more pronounced on advanced industries, on complex and knowledge-intensive industries, and we can see that the United States have only few sectors that are truly champion vis-a-vis other in the world. The second factor, of course, is the country that it's in the north of the Philippines, that we believe that its authoritarian mercantilism involves IP theft, forced technology transfer, subsidized overproduction. On top of that basically it's started the decline of globalization, because China never fully embraced the WTO framework. So I'm not gonna start in the conversation of who started or not the trade war, but we can see that China's mercantilism and its commitment to WTO framework, it's long way before America isolationism. So just to list a few of China's uncommitments on WTO framework, high subsidies, IP theft, even companies policies on procurement, but also unfair policies for companies that are trying to invest in China. They have invisible and non-tariff barriers it's very hard for companies investing in China to get market access in China. The only way of companies to nowadays to succeed investing in China is if they are not gonna sell in China. If they are going to invest in China because they want to export the products and not compete in China, it's very easy, or at least easier, but it's a market that is sustainably and gradually increasing how close it is. And we have seen also some statement even that their goal basically is self-sufficiency. This is also one of the symptoms of why America is closing it down, closing its economy, and basically the core of America's isolationism. There are other factors that I will discuss later, which are the imbalances, and also that touches the Philippines. But I will say the main two ones is the industrialization and China's mercantilism and commitment to the WTO framework. I'm saying this just to give a context, of course, and just to so the negotiator and also policymaker in the Philippines can understand a bit these nuances and views that there are from the United States. So now I want to talk about tariff. I'm not going to repeat what is in the news because basically I prepared this on Friday, and a lot of things have changed since Friday. So basically just to state some stylish facts that what do we know so far from our view, particular here in the United States, is that on the one hand, despite what I just mentioned, China is not the top priority for the United States government, at least in this administration. As the moderator announced, there are some ongoing negotiations with the European Union that also are strong and imposing tariff to 50% or so. And also they are pushing other countries to basically create deals, but without taking into account necessarily that the main geopolitical adversary of the United States is China, as it was shared during the campaign. Nowadays, we don't see that that's the top priority of the negotiations. Second is that contradictions are part of a feature. So I will discourage the Philippines policymakers there to try to overanalyze this. So, for example, tariffs are announced that they are gonna increase revenue, but on the other hand, tariffs are supposed to onshore production. But if they're onshore production, there's gonna be less import, hence less revenues, and so on and so forth. So there is a bunch of this type of contradictions. I think that's a feature, and I will convey, not overthink about what that really means, because I don't think that as a negotiation tactic is basically it's just what it is so far, and this is what we know. Third, I think the UK-US announcement is not an agreement. Is because if it was an agreement, it should have been negotiated through Congress and so on. This is an announcement of a deal that they impose a few quotas here and there, but mainly is that the blanket 10% tariff will stay. That was part of the statement of the White House when they announced this agreement, and this is something that has been reiterated after in announcement from authorities. So I think it's very likely that we will see some sort of tariff, and unfortunately, in my point of view, the realistic scenario is that there's going to be a blanket tariff globally, and it's going to be likely a 10%. And the big precedent of this is that one of if not one, the main key ally of the United States, which is the UK, it is being targeted 10%, even that there is all of the narrative of trade imbalances and so on. Most of them don't apply necessarily to the United Kingdom. Four, as I mentioned before, there is no agreement. Agreement require law, and there has not been legal changes, and there is no legislative agenda on trade. So all of this also creates the uncertainty of what will happen when the administration change, even if this is in the same political color, because still it's going to be a different leader. So far has been through executive orders, which is similar to decrees or other administrative tools that different countries have, that doesn't go through law, so everything basically can change when well, even before, but there is more uncertainty what will happen with all of these policies, because they are not being discussed through Congress, they are not by law, so it can be easily changed with the stroke of a pen, and also it will be, even if as I mentioned before, even if it's the same political color, a new administration from other leaders might likely change the amount of tariffs, of the style of negotiation, and so on. So this increased the uncertainty, and I will add on this that uncertainty is also a feature. It's not it might be a negotiation tactic or not, but it's also something that is going to stay until things are going to be legislated, and there is no legislative agenda on trade. So uncertainty is gonna stay for a while, unfortunately. So this is our view on even if the main goal, which is not necessarily the main goal, is to reindustrialize America, is one of the goals stated by the administration, but also other goals are related to fentanyl. Other goals are related, as I mentioned before, with revenue for the government and so on. But even if the goal is reindustrialize America, part of what we see is that basically there is a good assessment that is a good objective. There are some trade imbalances and trade deficit that needs to be addressed. There is a 1.2 trillion in deficit on annual deficit on trades on goods. That those are things that need to be addressed because are fairly unsustainable in the long run. China's an adversary. This is a legacy from the first Trump administration that also was continued through the Biden administration, but the view that China is an adversary is here to stay, and assessing that the WTO framework is insufficient to address all of the trade imbalances and basically the authoritarian mercantilism that China has put into effect. The WTO is clearly insufficient to address all of that. But however, we also see that there is no clear view on focusing in strategic advanced industries. When the Trump administration talks about manufacturing, it is unclear what type of manufacturing are they talking about. We at ITAF always said that potato chips are not the same as computer chips. Although to create potato chips, you need some manufacturing, but it's clearly different in terms of spillovers, in terms of knowledge intensity, R&D, etc. What you need to create a potato chip vis-a-vis a computer chip. But apparently, the Trump administration is seeing all of this as equal. Of course, in the second point here, in terms of alienating allies and treating allies and adversaries in the same way, I'm keen to also have the perspective from the Philippines in this, because from Washington there is quite a surprise on how the Trump administration is basically treating all countries as equal, but we know that we have friends, we have allies that we need to treat differently, and the ultimate goals with our allies should be different. So that's something that has surprised the Washington D.C. community, and of course there is tariff as the Bangko Sentral might know better than I. Tariff as a tool, not an objective itself, and there are some shifting rationales, as I mentioned before: fentanyl, revenue, industrialization. There are some contradicting signs of what is the top priority for the administration. We made a small calculation about basically what will happen if other countries retaliate at the same rate that the Trump administration is announcing the tariff. This was with the first set of announcements. Long story short, my point here is that the United States is an export indeed of advanced manufacturing, and those advanced manufacturings are products are going to be harmed. We calculate that the potential retaliation is at least $56 million. This is not even taking into account Canada and Mexico, so that number is higher. This is only for information technology agreement products. This represents around at least 26% of all exports on this area, and this is only a subsector. So part of what is happening now is that potential retaliation is not taken into account, and we will see after the 90 days pause how other countries are going to react to the United States tariff, because this is a dynamic, this is a back and forth. It's not that the United States imposed tariffs and nothing happened after. So yeah, exports are going to be harmed. And as I mentioned before, the United States champions are global companies, and they are quite big. This is a recent analysis that we did with all of these companies are part of the top 100 on market capitalization, are all public listed companies. So we basically analyze what is the share of revenues outside the United States. So on the one hand, you can see what is the potential that eventually could be onshore to the United States. But on the other hand, this also revealing that advanced companies in strategic sector needs the global economy. It's not enough the United States as a market on its own for technology companies, aerospace and defense, and so on. Perhaps for potato chip type of companies, the United States it's an enough market for their manufacturing, but for advanced manufacturing, you need the rest of the world to compete, and this is also reflected on the share of the revenues of the companies. So it is. I'm not gonna go into detail about the back and forth of the negotiation, but because everything is changing. But that's basically an overarching view of what will be the core issues that will harm the American economy, and particularly in advanced manufacturing for the United States. Now, I want to pivot to what our view that what the Philippines should do. Of course, this is the new Oval Office, all golden and big and beautiful. So first is and this is mostly a recommendation, but also is something that we know that's going to happen because we have seen declarations and announcements. For example, what happened with the European Union last week is part of that, is that the United States government and the Trump administration and Trump himself probably want to start negotiations. So probably those countries that have not take the phone, or well, I guess nobody calls by phone nowadays, but at least communicate with the United States government. Those countries that have not done that, they're going to receive the reciprocal tariff announced on the so-called Liberation Day. That's, I think, I'm fairly confident on that. That's a highly likely scenario. So basically, to the Philippines, to other ASEAN member states, if they want to reduce the eventual reciprocal tariff, some negotiation needs to start. And we are, I think, at day 47 out of 90, so there is a bit of time left to do that. Second, and this is not surprising for this administration in particular, symbols and announcements are as important as what is written in the negotiation. We have seen this in many announcements of Trump himself, of the administration. Also, how the announcement was with the UK trade deal was announced. I will underscore that they announced that deal in Victory Day, which is the day that the United States and the Allies defeated the Nazis in the World War II. So it's very symbolic, even in those type of things. So I will encourage also in take special attention to how announcement and symbols are shared. And I think the Philippines have a lot of, as an ally country, have a lot of to share on that regard. And as I mentioned before, tariff can be reduced through negotiations. Yet I don't see that will be eliminated in total. And trade policy is part of the geopolitical chessboard, so that means circumvention of Chinese production, Chinese presence in the supply chain of key exports to the United States will be taken into account, and so on and so forth. I know that that's of course absolutely relevant for the Philippines, but also I think is more pronounced for other ASEAN member states too, namely Vietnam, Indonesia, and Malaysia. I think that's very likely. The United States, I think they understand the importance of ASEAN centrality, and there is no pressure for countries to basically quote unquote pick a lane. But I think it's also important that the ultimate products and the supply chain that is associated that will arrive to the United States doesn't have circumvention from Chinese production, mainly because what I mentioned before, this is production that is subsidized there are IP theft, forced technology transfer, underlying that, and so on and so forth. So that's something that is going to be taken into account. And we, as we like to create indexes, so we created the Trump Risk Index. Basically, we took two objective indicators: one, military spending, and second, trade balance on goods and services. And then we also created two qualitative two indicators based on qualitative data. One is toughness on China. This is perceptions, laws, declarations, etc. And then anti-US policies, which is basically treating US companies different than other companies because they have larger revenues, because they have frontier technology, and so on and so forth. So we created this for all US allies. These are the allies in the Indo-Pacific. And we can see it, and that well, basically this is normalized. So if you are surprised that the trade balance here is positive, it's because it's less negative than compared to the average of all the weighted countries. But we can see here, and this shed a light on basically what the Philippines might start showing, that compared to other US allies, the Philippines have a relative low military spending, but have a positive trade balance, toughness of China, and a positive reception to US investment. So I think this also shed a light in basically what the Philippines might do for symbolism negotiation, but also for tangible initiatives. So this is redundant with what I just said, but I live here, so in case you want more details. So basically, military spending offsets all of the other components, and the Philippines will be much better positioned if according to this index, if they increase military spending, at least it will be in a better position compared to other countries, not only in the Indo-Pacific, but also the other US allies. And we also developed the Trade Imbalance Index. Basically, these are take into account 11 dimensions as are listed here. And we consider the largest economies in the world. These are just Indo-Pacific countries, but if you want to see the whole world, we have developed that. And basically, this is negative or positive from the point of view of Washington according to each dimension. And we see here that trade balance for China and other even non-tariff barriers, etc., are negative for the US, and so on and so forth. But then if we can see how the Philippines is positioned in relative terms, again, this is compared to the global average, is that it has a positive is in a more positive position, with the exception of the ranking of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce International IP Index, mainly in existing gaps in IP protection in life science and content, and barriers for licensing and technology transfer. So basically, these are different things. Again, this will improve the position to the Philippines to negotiate if they are addressed, and the Philippines will be truly and will be accurately stating that they are in a better position than at least other countries, not only in the Indo-Pacific but also in the world, vis-a-vis to the United States. And finally, and I'm sure some of you are familiar with this report nowadays, is basically the USTR, the United States Trade Representative Office, develops the National Trade Estimate Report. The National Trade Estimate Report, which is basically state the main concerns from the United States to third countries that are in terms of trade barriers, that could be tariff, and on the other dimension that I discussed before in the imbalances. I encourage everyone to review the Philippines because they are concerned about most favored nation status, non-trade barriers, and so on and so forth, and other concerns in terms of weed protection, etc., etc., etc. This is a report that is being created from decades ago. It's not political. Don't consider this as something from the view of the trade administration. This is something that has been created from 1974, as far as I know. So basically, these are the concerns of the United States as in general vis-a-vis other countries, including, of course, the Philippines. So just to wrap up quickly, what the Philippines also should do while America is closing its economy on the one hand, I encourage consider CPTPP and the Digital Economy Partnership Agreement, and I'll be quick on this. Other relevant ITIF work is our positive view on globalization. We believe in free trade with allies, pragmatic trade with others, and strategic trade with our adversaries. Thank you. This is my contact information. Thank you for this invitation. Sorry for the time, but I will be keen to see how the Philippines is hosting ASEAN next year. So thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Balbontin. Now to dive into the heart of discussion, it's now time to hear about the study entitled Navigating a New Era of Reciprocal Tariffs, Strategic Implications for the Philippines and Selected ASEAN Economies. Now, this study is an in-depth analysis of how the evolving US-China tariff regime and global value chain shifts affect the Philippines and its ASEAN peers. To present this, it is my honor to introduce Dr. Rafaelita Aldaba. She is an Emeritus Research Fellow at the Philippine Institute for Development Studies and a renowned economist and industry strategist. Her extensive contributions include crafting transformative frameworks like the Industry Roadmap Program and the National AI Strategy Roadmap. Dr. Fita Aldaba will highlight key risks, opportunities, and policy strategies for navigating import flooding, trade realignment, and competitiveness challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, let's please welcome the very lovely Dr. Fita Aldaba. Let's give her a warm round of applause, please. Hi, Dr. Fita. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. It gives me so much pleasure to see everybody here. And thank you, of course, to the PIDS and BSP for organizing this very important event. So, and thank you as well to Rodrigo that gives us a lot of insights in terms of providing updates in terms of what's happening right now in the US. So my analysis would actually it has taken into account things that we currently know. And of course, a lot of this is still evolving. And hence, I'm really monitoring what issuances, announcements are being issued on a daily basis in the US. Okay, so next slide, please. So what we're currently seeing now is a global trade shift characterized by fragmenting world. And this has been driven by geopolitical rivalries, national security concerns, and economic nationalism. So described as the age of tariffs, and this is exemplified by the announcements last April of the US, the reciprocal tariff regime. Of course, the impact would be asymmetric. It would, a lot of the effects on countries would depend on the structure of their exports to the US, as well as in terms of how their economies could quickly adapt to all these changes. And of course, we're also seeing a global value chain reconfiguration. And right now, considering that this is already Trump 2.0, this has started way back in 2016 during Trump 1.0. And nowadays, we're seeing that multinationals are really taking into account resilience, along with diversification and geopolitical alignment as factors in terms of in making their decisions where to locate and where to produce. So for the Philippines, all these developments are posing both challenges and opportunities. While of course, our tariffs, the reciprocal tariffs imposed on the Philippines are relatively lower, but at the same time, our export base is quite modest, okay? So in the next slide. So my goal in this presentation is to be able to design an integrated industrial strategy that would respond to these global challenges. And we'll be assessing vulnerability and the strategic positioning of the Philippines relative to our neighbors, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, and Vietnam. And I tried measuring the impact through the construction of an index, which I call a tariff exposure composite index. And we try also to identify export risk and opportunities. And last part, we will be proposing some strategic policy recommendations to the government. In the next slide, okay. Just to provide a little bit of context in the analysis, I would like to share with you our industrial policy journey. This is important in assessing in terms of how far have we come and what lessons have we learned along the way. So we started to adopt an industrial policy through the imposition of tariffs, non-tariff barriers, along with other fiscal regulatory support through an import substitution strategy way back in the 1950s and the 1970s. A lot of maybe some of the people here weren't born yet, but okay, this of course it nurtured some industries, but at the same time, it gave rise to inefficient monopolies as well as a misallocation of resources. And so towards the 1980s, the 1990s, we embarked on a unilateral trade liberalization. We reduced tariffs, we removed import restrictions, but along the way, as we removed our tariffs, there was no corresponding industrial support program or safeguards. And this has led to a premature exposure of our industries to import competition. In other words, we were not ready. Our industries were not ready. And this has led to the beginning of our deindustrialization and job losses in the manufacturing industry. So in the next period, that's from the 2000 up to 2020s, this was already the age of rapidly growing globalization and the Philippines being part or negotiating FTAs. So we're part of the ASEAN economic community. We've signed a number of bilateral free trade arrangements as well as the more recent one, which is RCEP. There was a renewed focus on an export-led growth. And indeed, our exports of the electronics products increased. And in fact, this is where our exports are highly concentrated in. BPO export services also rise, but still, when we look at our manufacturing sector, it's still depended on low domestic value added, as well as with very limited backward linkages and shallow diversification, given the focus or the concentration on only a few products. And it has actually the services sector that has contributed largely to our value added as well as to employment. And so in the more recent years, we've started moving towards the implementation of a new industrial policy. And this has been institutionalized through the legislation of the Tatak Pinoy Act last year. And the DTI also implemented policies such as the manufacturing resurgence program through its IQS, inclusive innovation strategy, the comprehensive national industrial strategy, and the more recent one, which is an STI, science, technology, innovation-driven industrial policy. So moving on into the future, what we want is to be able to build on this industrial policy efforts and integrate them with our trade, with our digital and investment strategies. In the next slide, okay, I don't think I have to really dwell on this slide. Rodrigo gave us a full presentation, but suffice it to say that the US is now implementing its new trade regime and its own industrial policy through the executive order, which was issued on April 2, 2025, the US reciprocal tariff regime. Next. So in here, let's take a look at the tariff exemptions. There are over 1,000 of these tariff exemptions, and perhaps they're there in order to mitigate the impact of reciprocal tariffs that the US has imposed. And many of these tariff exemptions are in the organic chemical sector, wood, copper, inorganic chemicals, mineral fuels, pharmaceutical, other base products, plastics, and of course, very important is electrical machinery and equipment consisting of subsectors such as computers and semiconductor manufacturing, telecommunications, storage media, display panels, semiconductor devices and components, and integrated circuits. So next slide. So what we did, like what I've said, is to create an index. And this is our measure of the impact on the vulnerability of a country's exports to the new tariff regime. There are 5 dimensions that we assessed. One is tariff rate severity, the tariff burden, exemption coverage, strategic exposure, and US export dependence. And the score is from 1 to 4 for all of these 5 dimensions. And in terms of the TECI, the TESI, it's low, moderate, high, and very high risk. So in the next slide, I'm just gonna describe to you the 5 dimensions. Well, the tariff rate severity, this is the reciprocal tariff under the executive order on reciprocal tariff regime. And then the tariff burden, this measures the financial cost of the tariff. So we are measuring it by getting the share of a country's exports to the US that are not exempted. And then for the exemption coverage, this is the proportion of a country's exports to the US that are exempted from tariffs. And then we have also an indicator. It's called strategic exposure. Well, this is a qualitative judgment on the strategic importance of affected goods to a country's industrial structure. So this would pertain to those products that are part of the non-exemption list and are, of course, important to a particular country. And then the last one is export dependence. And this is the degree to which a country relies on the US market. And so it's measured by getting the share of its exports to the US. Okay, next. Okay, so let's take a look at the exports of the ASEAN 5. These are figures from last year. 2024. And as you can see, the table on your right gives us the value of exports to the US of the Philippines, along with Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia. And Vietnam has the highest exports among the five, 143 billion US dollars. And in terms of its share to its total exports going to the US, it's pretty high, right? At 35%. And so Vietnam is leading the ASEAN 5 in terms of its US exports, accounting for around 47% of the total value of exports of the five countries. And these are mostly data processing machines, communication apparatus, along with furniture and footwear. And we see in here that in terms of its index, the tariff exposure index, Vietnam has the highest. And it's given its high dependence on the US and the moderate list of products that are exempted, this exposure really is quite high for Vietnam. So as you can see on the chart, it's the highest among the five countries. And then we have Thailand. Thailand, the value of its exports is 66 billion US dollars. And in terms of its share, 22% of its exports, this goes to the US. And mostly these are auto parts, electronics, transmission equipment, which of course they indicate a more advanced manufacturing base. Okay, and then we have Malaysia. Malaysia, its exports to the US was around 54 billion US dollars. And in terms of its dependence on the US as a market for its exports, it's relatively on the low side at 16%. And in terms of its major exports to the US, these are mostly high-value electronic components such as integrated circuits, semiconductor media, ICT accessories. All of this tell us how deep the participation of Malaysia is in the global value chain. And these are highly sophisticated products relatively. And for the Philippines, we have actually the lowest as compared to the other ASEAN countries, 15 billion US dollars. But though our exports relative to other countries, these are a bit on the low side, but in terms of the share of the US to our exports, it's still relatively high at 20%. And our exports are mostly electronics like semiconductor media, storage devices, ICT parts, including coconut oil, printing machines. And again, this combination of products tend to show the limited product diversification apart from the small volume that we've already discussed. And then we have, then we have Indonesia. Indonesia, in terms of its exports to the US, that's around 30 billion US dollars. And in terms of its dependence on the US market, it's relatively low. In fact, the lowest ratio, 11%. And most of these are primary and agro-based products like palm oil, rubber, frozen seafood, and footwear. But of course, Indonesia is also exporting electronics products, but still at a limited scale as compared to the other countries. Next slide, please. So let's look at the exempted products of the 5 countries. And we're looking at these exempted products because these are sectors that are more resilient and are likely to be shielded from immediate disruption. For the Philippines, Malaysia, Vietnam, and Thailand, as shown earlier, they're already strong in electronics and ICT products like integrated circuits, processors, controllers, automatic data processing machines and parts, solid state, non-volatile storage devices, and other storage media. And so for Malaysia and the Philippines, which are more advanced in terms of semiconductor tooling, Malaysia is exporting machinery for semiconductor devices and IC parts. And then, of course, Philippines, I didn't show this earlier, but still it's a relatively smaller volume, but I think it's important. We are exporting chemical used in electronics. And so we are better positioned to absorb the trade diversion opportunities, be able to absorb or attract relocations of these high-tech products. And then Vietnam, it's in the finished ICT goods like smartphones and monitors. And then we have Thailand. Thailand, as we've seen, has a more diversified electronic product set. It has also raw materials like refined copper, tubes, mix of upstream and midstream electronics. And then for Indonesia, these are more low-tech and raw materials and inputs like natural rubber, wood products, plywood, crude petroleum, and some limited presence in electronics. Next slide. So we now look at the flip side of this. So we've seen the exempted products. Now for the non-exempted products, are going to be the sectors that the impact would be higher as they're going to face potential cost pressures, competitive disadvantage, or trade reallocation risk. And for the Philippines, like what we've said, there's some electrical components, and coconut oil is also part of the non-exempted list. We have also other items like rubber tires, printing machines, and wires. And then for Vietnam, we have furniture, you have footwear, but at the same time, you also have photovoltaic panels. These are solar panels and consumer electronics. While of course its products, its export products are those in tech assembly are protected, but it's still highly vulnerable in labor-intensive, margin, price-sensitive export footwear and furniture. And then for Malaysia, you have this list of products that are non-exempt: solar panels, rubber gloves, printing equipment, medical devices, etc. And then for Indonesia, again, raw materials like palm oil, and then it also has apparel, footwear, crustaceans, and exempted goods mostly are those on the low-tech natural resource. And then for Thailand, quite similar products: solar panels, TV cameras, rice, also consumer electronics. So while it's exports of automatic data processing, parts, ICs, and core electronics are exempted or protected, Thailand is exposed in auto parts, in agri-food, and low to mid-tier electronics. Next slide, please. So, so this gives you an overall picture of the calculations that I've made. But given that we have very little time, so I'll just mention that Vietnam has TESI, it has the highest index at 3.4. This is followed by Thailand, also classified as high risk. And then for the four countries, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Philippines, it's moderate risk, but at various degrees, okay? Considering that they have different configurations. Next slide. So I just tried plotting the tariff rate and the exemption coverage. And I have here 4 quadrants: low tariff, high exemption, which is the most the safest zone. And then you have quadrant 2, low tariff, low exemption. Quadrant 4, that will be high tariff and moderate exemption. And then quadrant 4 would be high tariff, low exemption. And Philippines and Malaysia, we fall under the most favorable quadrant, low tariff and high exemption. Thailand and Vietnam are in the high tariff, moderate exemption, so higher risk of trade and production disruption. And then Indonesia is the most exposed, given that is it a sign for me to stop? But again, it's located in a high tariff and low exemption quadrant. Okay, so moving on. Next slide, please. Let me just mention something about China. Well, of course, the relationship between the US and China, this is quite complex, but again, based on what we know, China, of course, retaliated, and that has triggered an increase in its tariffs up to 135, 145%. But currently, there's been a pause for 90 days, so until August. And after August, the announcement was it will go back to the 34% rate. But looking at the exemption list, it's considered moderate at 26.5%. And this exemption list of China, these are mostly high-tech and high-value products, telephone sets, smartphones, ADP. While we're manufacturing the ADP parts, China is manufacturing the ADP machines, and then communication apparatus, electronic ICs, processors, controllers, all very strategic products. And then it's tariff burden. I won't mention that again because I based the tariff burden on the 125% tariff rate. But those products that are non-exempt are actually consumer-oriented and mass market products such as electric accumulators, lithium-ion tricycles, scooters, pedal cars, toys, games, plastics, tableware, kitchenware, headphones, textiles are also being produced by our ASEAN neighbors. And again, this conflict, US trade conflict, already has been signaling a restructuring in global value chain, and this has reshaped the geography of international trade. While of course, there could be challenges because for products that won't be able to enter the US, where will China bring these goods? And of course, this could give rise to import surges, right? As well as industrial crowding. But at the same time, it also presents some opportunity for relocation of production to lower risk countries. Next slide. So I think I'm down to my last 3 slides. So these are opportunities, like what I've said, relocation of production from China, and the ASEAN 5 countries can absorb this diverted investments. We are best positioned, Philippines and Malaysia, in electronics, and then Vietnam, given its strength in furniture, garments, footwear, Vietnam can probably absorb the manufacturing of these products, but Philippines also, we can be a location for light electric devices, for appliances, footwear, garments, accessories, and toy manufacturing. Thailand for vehicle parts, furniture, household appliances, and Indonesia for footwear, tires, and consumer plastics. But again, for us to be able to fully maximize these opportunities, strong collaboration and cooperation with our ASEAN neighbors would be crucial. Next slide. So in terms of our recommendations, currently we're at a strategic inflection point. And our recommendation is for us to building on the new industrial policy that was started from 2012 onwards. We hope that we'll be able to integrate this industrial policy with our trade policy. And there are basically two measures that I would like to highlight. One is on industrial policy, and then the other is in terms of protecting our exports and including our industries. It's important for us to be able to move up chain from final assembly added stages, move towards semiconductor packaging and IC back-end services, diversifying our production, diversifying our trading partners would also be crucial. And in terms of the rules of origin compliance, this is also very important, as emphasized by the speaker a while ago. And of course, reskilling, upskilling the workforce to meet more complex, more advanced production would also be a vital part of the needed elements for us to promote our industries. In the next slide, we just take a look at the trade defense and monitoring mechanism. WTO consistent safeguards, anti-dumping and countervailing duties would be important, dynamic trade intelligence and an early warning system, and also forming a trade industrial transformation council that would integrate trade defense, industrial upgrading, and investment promotion. So two very important elements of our strategy would be the industrial upgrading part and a trade defense and monitoring mechanisms. My final slides, take away key points. Okay, so we are well positioned given our exposure is currently moderate. And then, of course, we need to really pursue more structural reforms to attract all these opportunities arising from trade diversion. And a lot of countries are also strategizing, and hence it's really important for the Philippines to move quickly, move swiftly towards the implementation of our strategies. We don't want to be a passive beneficiary. What we want is for the Philippines to be a strategic player in this global reconfiguration. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fita, for bringing us the good news, the silver lining in all of this. All right, at this point, we would like to invite Dr. Fita, please stay on stage with us, ma'am. Please stay on stage. We'd like to invite to join us on stage Dr. Orbeta, please, sir, from PIDS. Dr. Fita is here. Mr. Balbontin, please rejoin us if you're still online. Plus, of course, representing Bangko Sentral, we'd like to call on stage as well Assistant Governor Maria Margarita Gonzalez of BSP Research Academy. Hi, ma'am. Please join us here on stage. All right. For a class picture, is Mr. Balbontin online? Yes. All right. All right. All right. We'll have a photo of those in the room first. One. All right. One more, please. All right. And now let's have, there you go. Guys, please stay on stage. Mr. Balbontin is now online. There you go. The beauty of virtual, of hybrid. All right. All right, thank you very much again. Now that we have a clearer understanding of the lay of the land in Trump's world of tariffs, let's now hear from the business community. How will they respond? How will they turn the so-called disruption into opportunity? In the first panel session, we aim at how businesses are navigating the challenges and opportunities posed by the new reciprocal tariff regime, addressing risks such as rising input costs and import competition, as well as opportunities arising from trade diversion and shifts in supply chain. So this is going to last 45 minutes. I'd like to get a pulse check. How is everyone in the room feeling? We're good? We're good. Can everybody stand up? Everybody stand up. Everybody stand up. And why don't you look at the person to your left, all right, and describe that person in one word. I think you are blank. All right, everybody hearing good stuff about themselves? Now look at the person to your right and say, thank you, I know. Good. Everybody all right? We're all ready for the first panel discussion. Good. Everybody say tariff. All right, have a seat, everybody. You've earned it. I think we are ready for our first panel discussion. This is going to last for 45 minutes. Just so you know, we will open the floor to questions. So please, we want to make this as interactive and as engaging as possible. And may I now call on stage to join me, five. In fact, Mr. Christian Dave Bael. Hi, Christian. Business lead for external affairs and growth and global competitiveness. Have a seat, sir. Then, of course, our favorite, Dr. Sergio Ortiz Luis Jr., President and CEO of the Philippine Exporters Confederation. A round of applause, please. More energy from the audience. There you go. And then also joining us in this panel, Mr. Bobby Batong Bakal, Vice President for Industry Development at Steel Asia. He brings with him decades of experience driving industrial policy and manufacturing innovation. Then we have Mr. Earl Lawrence Kwa, Vice President of Ionics EMS Inc. and President of the Electronics Industry Association of the Philippines, a leader in advancing smart manufacturing and AI-driven technologies. Hi, Earl. And of course, last but not least, Ms. Marites Hoxon Agoncillo, Executive Director of the Confederation of Wearable Exporters of the Philippines, with extensive experience in trade negotiations and export advocacy. All right, gentlemen, lady, again, guys, warm round of applause for our panel number one. All right. So I'm going to start the questions and then open the floor to questions from the audience. So please do join us, participate. Don't forget to take photos, post it online. Just don't forget to use our hashtags. All right. Are we ready? Good. I want to start with my opening question is, as a curtain raiser, just to give us the lay of the land what you see from your perch. I want to quote Donald Trump. And he said, "It is a giant, beautiful store, and everybody wants to go shopping there. And on behalf of the American people, I own this store and I set the prices. And I'll say, if you want to shop here, this is what you have to pay." So my question to our panelists here is, what do you have in this store? Talk to us about your inventory in Trump's department store. How is it looking today? And are you looking at a potential supply shock or demand shock in the near term? Maybe we start here, ladies first. Ma'am, go ahead.
Hi, good morning. PIDS garments. Trump's store is basically what everyone is wearing, and that's my group: apparel, shoes, and bag. And Trump's store, the total U.S. imports apparel, shoes, and bags is about 400 million US dollars a year. The global market is about 1.8. Okay, so the US market is big. It's one homogeneous market. It's just small, medium, and large. That's Trump's store. Size 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in shoes. That's Trump's store. So it's a very, very lucrative, eye-catching market. Okay. If you dive, just to emphasize it, the European store would be a bit different when it comes to sizing. So it's a little more difficult to enter into. So that's our store. It's a big store. And do you want to know how much?
How much inventory do you have in Trump's store?
Our inventory in the store is basically close to 1.8 billion. That's our share in the U.S. market for dollars.
Dollars.
$1.8 billion. That's basically apparel, textile, shoes, and bags exports to the U.S.
All right. All right. Thank you for that. That's your store. Earl, what do you have in Trump's store?
Well, we are in electronics manufacturing. From last time I checked, the semiconductor and electronics export globally is about 45 billion US dollars. From Ionic's point of view, we have electronics manufacturing, design, and other types of services that we cater to the United States. And given the shifting geopolitical situation, both from the China politics as well as the tariff currently being imposed, there is a potential strategic shift towards the Philippines as a new venue. We saw that in Trump 1.0, Vietnam was a big benefactor of that. And as in Trump 2.0, we see a potential that the Philippines might be able to partake in that as well. And so that's basically how we want to position ourselves in this new global situation.
Earl, how much of your business is with the U.S.?
Roughly, if you look at the, because there's direct and indirect customers. So we have customers who we engage with that are from, let's say, Israel, but shipped to the United States, right? So it's very hard to say, but roughly in terms of value of goods sold, potentially 20, 30%.
Wow, 20, 30%. All right. Yeah. How about you, Bobby?
Well, my story is a little different. I represent a company, Steel Asia, that is not an exporter to the U.S. But I think the perspective that I could share today is what would be the impact of this changes in trade to domestic producers, no? Especially when you talk about diversion of goods from other countries going to the Philippines. And that's what I want to talk about. In steel, as Steel Asia, which is a leading producer of steel, our products is for the domestic market. But you'd also be surprised that we've also started exporting, and we can talk about that later.
To which countries are you exporting?
Canada actually.
Ah,
Bago lang yon.
interesting. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah. But
Why
this happened.
Canada?
Well, this happened before the tariff. I wouldn't say it's because of the Trump tariffs, no. But I think it shows that even domestic producers, once you get it right, you're able to compete given the right circumstances, no.
One quick question, Bobby. What are the chances that the foreign companies, the Vietnamese companies, will flood the local market with their products that they can't sell to America anymore? Are you worried about that? Are you starting to see that?
I think everybody thinks about that, no? But that's why it's important, like a former Yusek Fita talked about our defensive mechanism, no? This defensive mechanism has always been in place, but we're probably not the best practitioner of this one, no? When you think about anti-dumping, the safeguard and countervailing duties. In fact, in a recent report of World Bank, just a couple of days ago, you'll see that the Philippines is probably one of the least user of these measures, no? And by the way, to do that, it probably take you a year.
And why is that? Why are we the least used mechanisms?
Well, it's probably either industry is not quick to do so, and also our partners in government is not able to translate that very fast. I'll give you an example. If it takes us a year to investigate an issue like that, Vietnam is able to do that in 120 days. No? So there are provisional measures to implement it. And with this new tariffs, I think we need to be able to do that in 90 days.
All right. More on that later, Dr. Serio. What about you, sir?
Well, I don't represent a particular product, no. So our store is the store of, we are the umbrella organization. So I'd rather speak of all those exporting to the U.S. That is 15 sectors in my association. So basically, I would depend the question, what is the stop to the others? What are the players?
What about Dr. Serio? Let me rephrase the question. You represent 15 sectors. Which sector is in trouble?
Well, basically, you have the one.
The wearables,
right.
garments.
Was in trouble. The wearables and furniture is one. We're trying to do that. Agricultural products, some of the other items.
I agree. All right. Christian.
Hello. So I represent semiconductors and electronics, and as Dr. Fides has mentioned in this forum, we are the top commodity export. So as per values, March 2025, that's the latest data that we have from the Philippine Statistics Authority, and this is pre-Trump.
Pre-Liberation Day.
Yeah.
Before April 2.
So we have yet to see the impact of the reciprocal tariffs on our sector. But as of March 2025, we had an uptick of 2%. So it became $3.96 billion of our export, total export, and 15.4% of this 3.96 goes to the United States. So in terms to answer the question of how is our store in terms of the Trump department store, we have yet to see the impact really in terms of value. But definitely when Trump announced the tariffs, we already heard from since SAPI is a industry association, we have already heard from our member organizations that orders decreased from the US. So in terms of value, we have yet to see once PSA released the April 2025 data so that we could compare March 2025 to April 2025. And hopefully when June 2025 data comes in, we could see a trend to validate these claims. But for now, I think that's what I can say.
All right. But Christian, I spoke to Dan Lachica about a month ago, and he said he thinks it's net positive for you guys. In fact, he was sharing, he got a call from 2 or 3 foreign companies already looking at the Philippines to expand. I mean, you did see a surge of investments in the last 18 months. Sumitomo Metal Mining is ramping up nickel operations. Who else? Samsung Electronics just moved their R&D to Batangas, right? GE is now sourcing their critical semiconductors from Philippine companies. So it seems like you are a net beneficiary.
Yes, there's a lot of dimensions to it, if I may add. There's reduction, recalibration, so reduction of orders and recalibration in terms of supply chain, especially with the highlight to a China Plus One strategy. So there's a lot of dimensions to it. We could talk about that later, but definitely once the April 2025 data comes in, we can see a more tangible or a more validated claim of the effect of this reciprocal tariffs.
Emeritus, in 2024, the wearables industry contracted 4%.
I think about 3. Yeah.
3% contraction last year. You're targeting a 6% growth this year, correct?
Yes.
Is that pre or post Trump tariff?
Okay. Let me qualify why we are in trouble. Okay. And I need it's a bit on the technical side, because even before the pre-announcement on April 2, you have to remember my industry is already in trouble, because I have about 5,815 lines, tariff lines. I'm involved in 15 chapters, because it's apparel, textile, shoes, and bags. Okay. If I can show one slide just to summarize.
All right.
They have
it.
Can
we flash the slide?
Can you flash the slide on the page 1? Okay, it's a bit complicated, because without the 46% to Vietnam or the 17% to the Philippines announcement, we are already paying duties and taxes. Okay, so because we are not enjoying any preference status compared to electronics. Okay?
All right, here.
So okay,
this is it.
This is my magic card. Why I am in trouble. Okay, so my group basically is chapters 42, which is bags, leather goods. Chapter 64 down is your shoes. And in between that, chapter 50 to 63 is textile and apparel. Okay. Within these lines, omit chapter on I think the carpets. We are in 15 chapters covering about 5,800 for tariff lines. Okay. I'm sorry I'm seated on it.
Go ahead. Let me stand with you.
Highlight, yeah. Chapter 61 and 62 is already my priority lines. These are the two items, the two products that can really get hit, because these are the finished products. Articles of apparel, that's knits, and chapter 61, and articles of apparel, wovens, that's chapter 62. And you can see between these two chapters, pants, jeans, my suit basically is entering the United States at 32% tariff.
Oh.
Even without the April 2 announcement. Okay, your jeans is already at 14.9 tariff going into America. So we are 14.9 plus 10 or plus 17. So we are 32 plus 10 or plus 17.
Oh, wow.
So that's to simplify it. Okay, so that's why I'm really in trouble. Yeah. So that's one that is one clear thing. Even for footwear, I think footwear is an average of 10 to 15%. Bags is an average of 10 to 20%.
Just to put a little bit of color, our knitted or crocheted clothing apparel, 14.5% to 32% tariff when we sell to America. How much is the tariff on those made in Vietnam? It's the same.
That's because
it's a level playing field.
It's a level playing field. So at the moment, you're not seeing any movement, especially when he announced back to 10% drawing board. So it's a level playing field. This is what we have been encountering, because this group, this 15 chapters, is one of the carved out chapters in the WTO multi-fiber agreement that is still operating under the rules of origin. So that's it.
Marites, is there a line in the sand where you say this is where we break?
Break? Where we break of
where the industry dies.
Yes, yes.
This is it. It doesn't make sense.
This is a very critical moment for the industry.
Will it die at 17%? Additional
well,
on top of the 15 to 32,
Yeah.
another 17.
If Cambodia and Vietnam would get a little higher than 17, then I still can exist. As long as my ASEAN counterparts would have a higher number, I have a sliver of lining hope.
Playing devil's advocate here, Marites, what if it all comes down to technology? That 20% difference between our tariff 17 and 36, 19% difference. Can Vietnam just decide to, you know what, I'll bite the bullet, I'll buy the latest technology, which will give me efficiency, boost productivity, pagalingan na lang to absorb the cost.
Okay.
Can that cover the difference, that 19% difference that you think is your silver lining?
No. Do you know why? We are one of the unique industries that still rely on human hands. Technology can play. We import machines. You know, there's an ILO study and even a World Bank study that why are we the favored labor-intensive industry? We are actually an industry that can really propel economic development. Because to simplify and to expound, kahit balik-baliktarin mo kasi, the machines can operate. It can cut the fabric. You know, it's the whole chain of production from textile fabrication, from getting it from the farms, from the cotton, putting it in between into the machines. Now, textile fabrication. Once you go into garment manufacture, once you go to shoes manufacture, once you go to bag manufacture, the dexterity of the hands is still important. Okay, there's the impact of technology is there, but it will still it will not even AI. You still need human hands to form the product because they're very sensitive. Hindi pwedeng technology yung bawat sleeves mo, no? They're very sensitive.
All right. Thank you, Marites. Dr. Serio, for Phil exports, sir, we've got the second lowest reciprocal tariff at 17%. Are there products of ours that you feel would become less competitive because of the tariffs? Because I was looking at the list of reciprocal tariffs. Ang lamang lang naman sa atin is Singapore, 10%. Congo, 11%. Mozambique, 16%. Norway, 15%. Venezuela, 15%. And Zambia, 17%. So tariff-wise, if you take out the efficiencies, productivity, and tariff-wise.
Well, actually, let me go back to the study and to the presentation earlier. No? And it is nice that we are looking at all these probabilities. But I read this tariff differently. I watched the interviews of Trump before the election, President Trump before the election. And he was categorically saying that he doesn't want to use sanctions anymore, even for Russia. He said, maybe I will use tariff when I get elected. But basically on the same interview, he also said that what we don't want to lose is the supremacy of the dollars. Because if we do, then we lost the war. And so my assumption here is tariff, he weaponized tariff. But we are looking probably at the wrong reason why. Tariff, as presented here, is just a tool for him. It is not the end game. It's not a question of balancing trade. Look at what Singapore is the lowest, 10%. Why even put tariff on Singapore? They are positive against Singapore. My feeling is they would just like Singapore to use Singapore as to put peer pressure on the other ASEAN countries to get what his real purpose is. The real purpose, I think, is which will accomplish what we are saying, manufacturing going back or whatever, is to retain dollar. And I think he wants to stop BRICS. And that is why you will notice in the changes, if we keep looking at these numbers, we'll end up crazy because every week it changes. I don't even understand why all of a sudden China's trade, which is the purpose of all this thing, is suspended. And so what are these 90 countries negotiating, doing, offering? We cannot offer anything because we are not part of the dollar attack. We're not part of BRICS. We're not. We're such a small market. We could not negotiate and make any offer to the U.S. because we have already given what they want, and the only thing that we can offer if we negotiate is probably to protect other industries or to make lower. Will be from agriculture, which we cannot afford anymore. There's nothing we can offer. And besides, we are in a good position, as mentioned earlier. So we have to watch what is developed. And we have to keep talking to USDR to make sure to tell them, well, we are alive, we're your partner. Please, if there is any benefit, there is any suspension, please include us. Do not include us on the. We just have to keep them aware that we are alive and kicking, and we are a partner. And I don't think we have to come and negotiate and offer anything because there's nothing we can offer.
Can we offer, sir, something more political?
Pardon?
Something more political? EDGA, for example? More.
Something more.
Can we offer something more political? EDGA, for example.
Geopolitics is
geopolitics.
What do we have to offer? We have given them already.
That's a fair point.
We're the only one in ASEAN who is, I guess, in the same position as them, geopolitics-wise. So I guess we just have to keep our eyes open at the development, but let's not think of offering anything because there is nothing we can offer at the moment.
Dr. Serio, you mentioned agriculture. It was brought up earlier. I was talking to Ernie Ordonez, who is a big advocate, and he was saying we should ask the U.S. to exempt Philippine agriculture because the U.S. does not have a deficit with us in agriculture. In fact, he says the U.S. exports 2.5 times more than what we sell to them. Do you think that is something acceptable for our U.S. counterparts?
I do not know. I'm not so sure what we can. The problem is if we offer anything and we don't offer them to our neighbors or China, it will put us deeper in trouble. After all, as I said, our export in the U.S. is so small, we don't even matter. We're just bystander, collateral damage if ever, or collateral. So I think we should be very careful on this. We should keep watching. We should keep tracking. And if there is nothing towards that will put us in the disadvantage, right now we are advantaged theoretically, but there are so many exceptions coming up. We don't know whether we will be disadvantaged. Our supply chain might really be disturbed. And we should be very careful about that.
I think Bobby wants to comment on one of the things you just mentioned. Go ahead, Bobby.
Yes. I think significant as it is, I think we in the Philippines should take this opportunity to further our industrialization. Because sometimes the question is, oh, does this mean that because of all of the challenges, we're gonna experience deindustrialization as a result? No. Kasi first of all, one thing, we gotta realize that industry policy is now rapidly being implemented by almost every country, led by Western countries. We avoided industry policy in the previous decades, no? But now is the time to implement them and grow our own industries, whether it's export or whether it's domestic. But of course, my purview is the domestic. And I think we're one of those countries with a robust domestic demand, no? So in terms of steel, while we Steel Asia, by the way, 60 years old already. So we have a very long term. This will happen, and many crises will happen. It happened in the past. It will happen in the future. But you have to keep on working on your domestic capability, and then perhaps in the future you'll be able to export. No, so I think that that kind of mindset is very important for us. This will happen. More things will happen, but we have to keep on working on industrializing.
Bobby, just very quickly, because you did say you are 100% domestic for your sales. You're starting to export to Canada. What about raw materials? How does your supply chain look like for raw materials? Where do you get your raw materials?
Oh, good question. Steel, steel comes from iron ore, no? But this is where which is not so much here in the Philippines. So it may come from Brazil, can come from Russia, it can come from China, elsewhere, Australia, no? Pero this is where technology comes in. Steel Asia is putting up 3 plants, and all of them are based on electric arc furnace that uses scrap metal. No?
Recycled na.
Recycled, no? So did you know that if you do scrap metal with our, especially with our renewable energy, we're able to produce green steel, which is 90% lower carbon emission than blast furnace from China. So that's where technology comes in.
Will it be cheaper? Will it mean cheaper?
No, it won't be. It won't be. Like most new innovations, it won't be. But long term, and when you think about the impact on the environment, I think it's something that we should pursue.
Speaking of industrialization, Earl, you are you're also setting up new facilities, right?
Yes, so two new
Two new
buildings, coming up
buildings?
in Malvar, yeah.
All right. Is this in preparation? Do you think this is the way you prepare for when the Philippines becomes a net benefactor of Trump 2.0?
I
Is
think,
this enough?
yeah, post April 2nd, we did see an uptick.
All right.
An uptick of interest, and not just us, but also our other companies within our industry. And so we did see that a lot of that actually is coming from Taiwan and even China, who currently have their manufacturing base in Vietnam. And so there has been that type of discussions going on. But having said that, a lot of it is data collection for potential simulation as far as implementation is concerned. I think they're waiting for the 90-day extension to expire and then see how the card falls. Again, we're like in the game of musical chairs, and the music is playing, and then when the music stops, we see where everything falls, right? So at this point, everyone is on, okay, let's get as much information and try to create as many scenarios, and then we pick one of those options to choose from.
And how quickly can you execute from the moment you pick the scenario?
So that's why. So there are,
Because Trump is 4 years.
yeah, so there were a couple. I had that conversation with a Japanese bank who has a manufacturing group, and they said, yeah, it takes about 6 to 8 months to plan, but 18 months to implement, whether choosing a site, facilitizing, hiring the people, and then another 2 years of ramping up. And so by that time you implement, iba na yung presidente ng
You just
ng
pray
US.
that the policy stays
Yeah,
the same.
so a lot of folks are waiting and seeing. That's their game. They wait and see. The middle ground, from what we've seen so far, is that let's use the current capacity, because right now there are a couple of local players that can ramp up at least in the short term, and then you could either do straight out outsource or do some kind of a captive line, where all right, let's work with you on an existing facility, you hire from us, and then we just manage it for you. Parang it's sort of a middle ground. And then if in 2 to 3 years, if things work in our direction in terms of geopolitics and the politics in the US, then we either move towards a more long-term investment or not. And so it's based on the conversations that we had. There are two things moving the states. One is more in the China-US tension, and then the other one is more on, shall we say, politics, or ideological leaning of one particular political group, no?
Local.
In the states, right?
In the States.
So one is forever. So in Trump one, China and US, Biden basically continued whatever Trump initially implemented. But in this situation where, let's say, the global trade war, where it's shotgun approach to all different countries, I don't think that the other party would continue those policies if they come into power in the next election. So one is a more steady, and the other one is more fickle, and so it's very hard to make decisions based on that. Yeah.
So you have several scenarios. Just very quickly, Earl. I'm curious, what is your most aggressive expansion plan scenario? If you do decide to, I'm going to ride this wave of us benefiting from Trump 2.0. How many more factories are you building?
We can't comment on that. So we'll just wait until July 9.
Ano lang, kindat na lang.
We'll have to wait for July 9.
It's have to be the Trump 2.0 that you ride. It can be after. If I can just share a personal experience, I actually joined an HP trip to South Korea about 10 years ago. Because I was with a group of printers, printing. They do print. They print boxes, labels. At that time, 10 years ago, there were 3 Filipino companies in that trip. So HP usually hosts these things where they show you the state-of-the-art technologies, encouraging you to buy. There was only one from Vietnam, and we were talking to the Vietnam company. And we asked, why are you only one? And they were saying, they just took a chance on us. Our printing industry is so small. They had no machines. All their machines were secondhand. Expensive, but secondhand. Last year, 9 years after, we found out that Vietnamese peer we were in the trip with just bought the Rolls Royce of the printing machines that HP was selling. They did not buy one. They bought 3. And their printing industry is so big now. And we asked, so what did that company end up printing? What brought them the volumes? Guess what? Hang tags. Sa likod ng damit, the hang tags. And we asked, how can it be so big? They rode on the growth of their garments industry. So they were saying it wasn't a switch we flipped overnight. We were building several industries. And when the moment was ripe, the stars aligned, the industries were ready, we all rode on it. So I guess that is maybe a lesson to learn about Vietnam's magic. Bobby, you want to share something?
Yes, that's why we want to emphasize that industry and company has to be long-term. No, it's not reactionary. It's not taking advantage of something that may not be there in the future. It has to be long-term, which is why I also want to bring up legislature. We had 2 new laws, Create More and Tatak Pinoy. These have long-term implications to industry. No, Create More is have started already. Tatak Pinoy is almost at the gate. IRR. We're all looking forward to that because these are the things that can change the landscape long term, and that's why we're very excited about that.
Bobby, you opened the floodgates to a very important question: policy. We have a new set of policymakers, LGUs as well, executives. Just a pulse check from the room. And this stays in this room. How confident are you about the next 3 years seeing the names of the winning candidates? Okay? 10, I'm very confident. Change is coming. We're at the cusp of breaking out. 1, 5, naku, business as usual. Okay na din. We can do it. We'll just ride it out. Or 1, I'm afraid. Pulse check. Can I see a raise of hands? Who in this room feels very confident? At 10, when they look at the winning list from the midterm polls. This is it. We are ready. We are about to take off. 10. Policy-wise, legislative branch, local executives, no 10. 9. 9. 8. 7. Okay, 3, 5, 6. 6, 5. 5. Business as usual. 4, 3, 2. Close your eyes. 1. Okay. Parang wala namang 1. That's quite encouraging. So I now throw the question before I open the floor. Before I open the floor to questions from the audience members, maybe one round here. What are the critical policy reforms that you think will make or break us in this pivotal moment? Dr. Serio, go ahead, sir.
Since you started this thing, I would like to see what is happening in tariff as a wake-up call to our politicians, to our newly elected, that they have really, well, not abandoned, forgotten export. You know, we're the most unsupported export industry in the whole of Asia. We don't even have funds for export development. We don't have funds for R&D for export. You know, our SME sector, many of whom are exporters, are the most underbanked sector in Asia. Thailand, our 2019 support for the SME was 11.6 billion in lending, as against Thailand of $190 billion. The nearest to us is Indonesia with $70 billion. And for export promotion, you know, it's an embarrassment. There's so many international shows that we should be joining. We are not, because there's no fund. The very few that we're able to join with our booths is an embarrassment, because there is no funding, and all these things. We are asking for some funding for export. You know, DTI is the one in the forefront, no? DOST to be able to develop. You know, the budget of DTI, DOST, and DITC, if you combine them together, it's in the one of the smallest. You know, we gave away money the last month. So is yung CCT, conditional tax. The last I saw before it was made PPP was $87 billion. 87 billion pesos. No? 15 billion of which is dedicated only to monitor. You know, the combined budget, it's not even the budget of DSW, it's just a project. The combined budget of DTI, DICT at that time is less than 15 billion. And yet, what do we expect from DTI, for instance, to develop trade, to and there's no budget. When we go there to the legislature to ask for budgets, they will ask us, where will you get it? And they will not even entertain the issue of getting it partly from the mga giveaway monies, no? Where there is no return. That's the problem, I think. And even in the ease of doing business is the other problem. we're able to solve that because ARTA in a way is helping a lot. No? But there is still a lot of legislation or policy to have to take. There is, for instance, agencies that make it difficult for exporter. PPA, for instance, regulatory function and are still the same. They keep raising expenses. We have a beautiful example of LLDA. LLDA, they should be supporting Laguna Lake, but they're regulating. You have to, if you are putting up a karaoke bar in Caloocan, you have to register with them. And I don't know why.
I can feel the frustration, sir. But thank you for the thoughts. We will make sure to list them down. We want to make them hear what we have to say. Next, Christian, why don't
Yes,
you very quickly? We have about 2 more minutes.
Okay. So while we welcome the implementation, or at least the signing of Create More Act and the recently signed AO 31, we're actually quite anticipating how AO 31 would play out, considering it hasn't yet been convened. Plus of how Create More Act, the IRR will trickle down to the LGUs, especially with the implementation of the R belt.
Okay.
So that's quite new.
All right, Bobby.
Okay. For me, I think most urgent is our defense, no? Trade defense rather. Our laws on duties, countervailing, and safeguards, they're 30 years old. Standards. Did you know that our building code was the last it was updated was 1977? That's 50 years old. So those are priorities because these are the ones that protect and grow local industries.
All right, Earl.
So, Dr. Ortiz-Ruiz mentioned R&D, especially in the technology industry. R&D is critical, and one of the things that made China so sticky is that, and even Taiwan, is that their evolution into what you call ODM, original design manufacturing. So, the U.S. Corporate is quite lazy, right? They want to minimize their activity as much. So basically what happens is, okay, this is the spec, you design it for us, and we'll buy from you, stick our label on it. That's basically the ODM strategy of like Taiwan and China. And so what happened was, when you're trying to pull out, the design belongs to your supplier. And so even if they wanted to shift to the Philippines or whatever, it has become very cumbersome. And so what we see now is that we receive a product, a device. Can you please reverse engineer that, because we don't have the design of our own product?
Oh.
And so that becomes a critical piece of the puzzle in terms of, at least on the electronic side. And so that our design capability has become fairly critical in converting a lot of these opportunities into actual outcome. And so I think the Philippine workforce has to have a more design thinking mentality, and if you want to really harvest and harness this shift in
And do you have the engineering
yes.
team to do the reverse engineer?
we
You do
we want
with the high tech, cutting edge
for
expertise
design.
for this. All right, all right. And Marites.
Okay. Two things. On the short term, I think the Philippine government really needs to address the tariff issue with the U.S. I think it's about time. I think the negotiating team left in May 2. There has been an initial discussion. For the industry, there would be specific industries that needs to be carved out. Okay, like I think I'll be carved out from the negotiation as a sectoral part, because you're still looking at 3 to 4 years down the line if it's a Trump administration. And our life cycle, unlike him, is very fast. We can move factories in 6 months. We're set up in 6 months. We can put our machines in 40-footer container. In 30 days, it's around, you can set it up. Okay, that's a short term. On the long term, it's a consistency on the implementation of existing laws. Bobby discussed it earlier, like the CREATE law and the is there, but the consistency of the government messaging and the pronouncements on this and the implementation, the IRR should be in place. I think that's what the Philippine government economic team should be looking into.
All right. We have a minute to entertain maybe one or two questions from the audience members. Do we have questions from the audience members? Yes, sir. Maybe one quick question from sir and one quick question for ma'am. All right. Microphone will be handed to you. Let's keep it short. We're running out of time, but this is a good problem. A great problem, in fact. Go ahead, sir. Your name, please.
Norbert Chinquanco. We're in fish farming.
Okay, fish
We do
farming.
export shrimp and bangus value added to 30-some countries. Miss Fita, Doctor, I think we should also look at, there must be some wisdom in this Trump tariff. And the wisdom may be contagious over time. That is, no country can continue to be in deficit forever. Number two, whatever export we encourage should have higher domestic value. Look at what happened to Vietnam. They became transshipments from China. So their export to US and other countries boom. But the long-term effect is that they have the highest tariff. So there are people who are saying, jackpot tayo, let's encourage more investors in the Philippines to move their factories, do what they're doing to export to US. But if the local component is small, will be harming the whole country's future tariff. And last item, trade policy, trade defense. We have reduced our tariff. Like in our industry, our raw material have tariff, but our competing finished goods are zero tariff. And more than the tariff, the other part is non-tariff measure. Within WTO rules, it's not, non-tariff measures are not bad. In fact, the simplest way is, like the other gentleman mentioned, we shouldn't allow import of what other countries do not allow. May laban tayo if we impose the same rules. If we do not allow what US do not allow to bring into the US, then we won't be baksakan ng surplus goods. Yun lang po. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. And then we have one more from ma'am, the lady in green. Do we have a microphone for her? Parehong green. Sige, si ma'am muna and then we'll go to you, ha, ma'am? Go ahead, ma'am. Your name po? No, your name and your question.
I'm Susan Amoroso from the Maritime Sector, Maritime Journalists Association of the Philippines. My question is about the current, we have been seeing posts from companies selling Chinese products saying that you do not have to pay taxes and it will be easier for Filipinos and everywhere around the world to import from China. Will that pose a negative effect on the Philippines since we will be importing goods from China when in fact we want to export? We want to expand our local industries.
All right. All right. Thank you, ma'am. Who would like to take that question from our panelists? Miss Susan. Okay. Miss Emeritus?
Mom, what's the question? You are importing from China, but she's selling it also.
She was asking
because in social media, I'm always in social media as a vlogger and as a journalist. So we have been seeing posts from companies, maybe from China or from here, telling the audience, I mean the social media, those in social media, that they can import directly Chinese products and bring it to the Philippines. So my question is, will this pose a very negative effect on the local industries when in fact we want to expand our local industries by Filipinos, by the 110 million Filipinos?
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, I think we have to be very careful in these postings because, as you've said, ma'am, there's a need to protect also the local industries. So and there is also a tendency that if you there's this thing that the Chinese are very sorry to mention that Chinese a group of traders. This was experienced by the garment sector years ago during the quota, the so-called transshipment. It could be very dangerous because you can be targeted, especially if our tariffs now at the moment are lower than China, no? So it can be they're just gonna use you as a decoy, and then probably to be another shipping point out to the US. So I think it would be to our disadvantage. We have to be very careful and selective in what we import from China on those mga posts na yan. Ma'am,
What can
government is here.
Government is here. They're listening, ma'am.
I'm sorry. You better answer this, Bianca.
Maybe okay. Just very quickly because we don't have much time. So maybe a few words, Bianca, from DTI.
Of course, we count on our consumers to support local industries. I think that's the best response that we can provide.
All right, but as a consumer, Marites, should I be expected to support local even if it's more expensive? Is that what is asked of me?
Well, it's a very personal is as a consumer. Well, ideally, yes, if we can support our own local industry, and the apparel side naman, it's still cheaper to import to use our own.
All right, go ahead, Bobby.
I mean, sometimes we tend to we tend to simplify things and say imported is cheaper, but of course, it comes with scale. If you're importing from the biggest producer in the world, of course, it's going to be cheaper there. But one has to take everything into consideration until it's imported. And let's remember, the term kanina was that overproduction. No, some countries do make overproduction to the detriment of other countries, consuming countries like ours. No, so I think for us, the most important market is the Philippine market. And I think for any Filipino, that should be the most important market. Export helps, expands our market as companies, as industries, but the primary market really is the Philippines.
All right. We have last two questions. Lady in the green, and we have from Sir Senen. So kay ma'am muna, go ahead.
Good morning. I'm Lucille from SGV. So this is more of a comment. I'm supposed to be part of the panel, but
you're joining the second one, no?
Yes,
All
we're
right.
not exporter of goods, we're exporter of services, no? But just siguro to give a ray of light to our different industries, no, who are or will be affected by the Trump tariff. There are ways to minimize the impact of the Trump tariff, no? So assuming your specific products are affected, there are certain concepts that we are actually looking into so that the impact would not be directly, for example, 40+% for garments, no? Just on a high level discussion lang, there is what we call first sale concept that's being applied, meaning if the exporter of the product exports to Singapore, which is subject to the 10% Trump tariff, and Singapore exports to the US, though the goods will be exported directly to the US from the Philippines, no? So that's a triangular shipment. Then the invoice from the Philippines to Singapore, which is presumably lower than the invoice from Singapore to the US, may be used in the US for customs declaration purposes, no? But of course, this is subject to review, no, study. There is also another concept on unbundling the different composition or the dutiable value, no? For example, there are royalties or other charges that may be removed, no, from the dutiable value in order to reduce the value of the goods when they reaches the Philippines, no? So yun lang. As I said, there are ways to minimize the impact.
All right. Teaser yan, because Attorney Lucille will join us for panel 2. But before we go to panel 2, Sir Sinan, I think he has a question.
Quickly lang. Thank you for the very insightful discussions. No, Michelle, I think one of the things that we may be overlooking beyond tariffs over the short term, I think we should also be monitoring our exchange rate. Okay? Naga-appreciate po ang peso. Siyempre, BSP is here. So, kaya I thought that maybe I'd bring this up kasi we might be overlooking the fact that our currency is, I think, appreciating quite quickly. And we have to take a look at the other countries, how they are doing it. No? Because I think Vietnam is, while it has appreciated, because the reasoning is, it's not that the peso is strong, the dollar is weak. But everybody has the same reason. Okay? So relatively, I think we have to take a look at that over the short term. Over the long term, sorry po, no, but again, when it comes to exports, we have to look at the very basic, with or without Trump. Trump may be done in 4 years. But exports, we have to look at power cost. Very basic, productivity and competitiveness. Power cost, infrastructure natin, both hard and soft, including connectivity. Kasi kung meron kang e-commerce to be one of the omni-channels for exports, kailangan po rin natin yan. Tapos yung sinabi ng aking boss, ease of doing business, the soft parts. I think this time, it should be disruption to reality. Because it seems that trade, maliit na player tayo eh. Maybe we should actually use this time to look and address the deeper and broader things that we have to do for export. So yan, power cost, yung infra, the hard one and the soft one, and then ease of doing business. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we wrap up, I know they're calling my attention already, but Ms. Marites just has a very quick comment on what was raised by Attorney Lucille. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, ma'am. It was raised earlier that there are some ways, no? You have to, I think, of course, you're from SGV, but for some of the products and some of the sectors here, there are rules, like our certificate of origin. The unbundling cannot work because our exports at the end of the day are rooted on the rules of origin, and there are documents such as the CO, certificate of origin, that would state it originated and was put together in the Philippines. Not a part was put together in China, and then that part, the sleeves goes to the Philippines, and then you put it in together cloth. That's a number one thing that we cannot do. And then also on the first, what's that? The first
sale concept.
Yeah, first sale concept. It is part of our. We can't also do that because it together with the CO and the other commercial documents in the importation, we have to really state that the country where it is being sold or being shipped out is the country. Yeah. A country of where the company, the mother company, is located. The most we can't also. I just wanna address that. Thank you.
Different folks for different folks. Many things. I want to end this discussion with just one sharing. When the Liberation Day tariffs were announced, Nobel-winning economist Paul Krugman, I'm part of his mail list, sent out a very interesting commentary. And the title is, Will Malignant Stupidity Kill the World Economy? He talked about how bad the policies were and took it a step forward and said the policy process was actually worse. Whether it's true or not, he said that if you ask ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Gemini, Grok, how the US can best tariff countries easily, you will get the computation that was used in reciprocal tariffs. Coincidence? We don't know. But in the possibility that Trump did ask ChatGPT, we also asked AI whether the Philippines will win or lose. And this is from DeepSeek. Full disclosure. The Philippines can exploit Trump-era tariffs by filling supply gaps in the US market and attracting diverted FDI, but must balance with diversification and domestic reforms. Success will hinge on improving infrastructure, leveraging trade agreements, and building resilient supply chains while avoiding over-reliance on any single market. Proactive diplomacy and competitiveness upgrades will be key to turning global trade tensions into sustainable growth opportunities. Is AI correct? You tell me. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause, please, for our panelists in the first session. Emeritus, Earl, Bobby, Dr. Seria, Christian, thank you. A class picture with all of you. Please stay on stage. Sir Bobby, please stay on stage. One class picture. We'd like to invite, of course, Dr. Orbeta of PIDS, Dr. Fita Aldaba, and of course, Assistant Governor Gonzales to please take a photo with our speakers. Na-extend tayo. So we'll try to tighten the next session, but it's good, no? All right, sige. Dr. Orbeta and Assistant Governor Gonzales, ma'am, please join us on stage. Ayan, Dr. Orbeta, syempre, man of the hour, who brought all of us together today. All right. Good, we're good. They give you their best smiles. All right. Again, thank you. Thank you very much to our friends from the industry. All right, and before we move on to our next panel, we'd like to invite all of our online participants to please don't forget to join the online discussion. Don't forget to use the hashtag #PIDSXBSP Forum, #ASEAN Trade, and #Clarifying Talks. Now let's keep our discussion rolling. Strike while the iron is hot, sabi nga nila. Our second panel is entitled Policy Response, Aligning Trade with Industrial Strategy. Aims to explore how trade and industrial policies can be effectively integrated to enhance the country's resilience and competitiveness. Joining us now for this important discussion are five highly accomplished experts. I'd like to call them to join me on stage. Calling first, Attorney Lucille Vicera from CSIP Gores Velayo, SGV. Hi, ma'am. Please join us on stage. Also, Attorney Victor De Dios, Principal at CSIP Gores Velayo. He has over 18 years of expertise in indirect taxation, customs, and global trade. Please take a seat, any seat, ma'am. Also joining here, Mr. Cyrus Paulo Buenafed, Division Chief for Knowledge Management at the Commission on Higher Education. Dr. Neil Adrian Cabiles, Assistant Secretary at the DOF Office of the Chief Economist as well. And last but not the least, we heard from her earlier, Ms. Bianca Sikimte, Director of the Export Market Bureau of DTI. All right, please have a seat. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just get... Okay, so we're supposed to finish, since we're short on time now, we'll try to keep it tight. Not short, but tight. Now, I want to start with, maybe we hear from the DOF, Dr. Cabiles and maybe Bianca. From an outsider's perspective, when I read the news, to begin with, why did we put a 34% tariff on the US? Why did we? Because that's what they're saying. That is the tariff that we impose on US goods. That's what they use for the computation. So why?
The tariffs levied on US goods imported by the Philippines is actually the same for all countries where the Philippines does not have an FTA. So it's all the same for all countries. In fact, when we computed the trade weighted average of the basically the trade weighted average of the applied tariffs from the US is just about 3%. If you if you compute for the weighted average. So it's actually kind of low already.
Okay. All right. And so now that Trump, seeing the number, just the headline number, obviously, is it so bad that he's decided to give you half of that, half of what you give them?
Well, basically, again, based on we tried to compute how Trump came up with the tariffs imposed on each country. Again, it's based on the level of trade deficit. Trade deficit that the US has with the Philippines. When we discount, for example, semiconductor or electronics trade, actually the US has a trade surplus with the Philippines. The Philippines is the 8th biggest market of US exports of agricultural products. We're an we're a growing market for passenger vehicles. And so what we're saying to the US, it's worthy to sit down with the Philippines and negotiate an agreement that would allow us to mutually meet our objectives.
And just to set the record straight, where are we coming from? What was the original tariff on Philippine goods?
It would
before the 17. Would there be an average?
It varies. I'll have to check the data, but for example, again for garments, it's quite high. Coconut, it's quite low. Roughly less than 3%. Electronics, of course, with the information technology agreement is also relatively low. Most of it are zero already. So it would vary from industry to industry.
All right. I was actually tinkering around. There is a UPenn, Wharton actually has, and you can use this. They have a simulator. They can compute how much the US will make from the Philippines with the new tariffs. And I was looking at the numbers. You can check it out yourselves. From the Philippines for 10-year period, 2026 to 2035, with an import value of $158 billion, they were estimating that America would make or generate $14.9 billion for a 10-year period in the new tariff regime. From Vietnam, for the same 10-year period, with an import value of $1.6 trillion, so mas malaki, they're looking to generate $274 billion in tariff revenues. From Malaysia, where the import value is times 3 of ours, $579 billion, they're looking to generate tariff revenues of $71.1 billion. We're at $15 billion. We are in the fringe. It feels like we are indeed small. So how do we tell America to sit down with us? When you talk to any businessman, sasabihin nila, liit nito. Let's not even bother. Let's lump them all together in a basket. So how do we convince them that you need to talk to us? We are not just the side story. We are important. Anyone from the panel?
We actually
Go ahead.
We were actually able to convince them to talk to us. Hence, we had the May 2 meeting with the USTR. In fact, other ASEAN countries were not able to secure a similar meeting. I think it was only Vietnam and Indonesia who was able to secure a meeting. The Philippines, without hesitation from the US side, as soon as we sent the letter requesting for a meeting, US immediately said yes to meeting the Philippines. The meeting was supposed to be less than an hour. It spanned for, it extended for a couple of minutes. So it was a very good and productive meeting.
What's the posturing from America? Were you in the meeting, Bianca? Yes, she was.
I was.
So why don't you tell us what was the posturing of America in this meeting?
Signed an NDA.
An NDA. All right. Okay. Go ahead.
No, well, just to talk about the relevance for the Philippines, you know, I mean, how you actually get them on board. This, you know, just as a background, this really actually started as, it's not just really as simple as what they get out of trade. We went through the relations that we have with that of the United States. The strategic relations in the first place was a good opening for us in the sense that you did get an exemption on some of the military aid, so that was sort of a way to go in. And of course, you have the Luzon Economic Corridor that is still being pursued even with the current administration, while it was introduced by the previous administration. So this particular two things created a sort of an importance of the Philippines on the part of the United States, even if you consider that the trade volumes are not that large.
So Bianca, what was the posturing of America in the meeting? Ito na lang, does it look like the Philippines will get what it wants? You heard it here, guys. We're positive. All right. And anyone else who would like to weigh in? Go ahead, ma'am.
Just a quick comment, no. While in absolute value, Philippines is small, I think we can offer the potential that we have, no. So the kind of products that we are exporting, semicon, they're very important as well, no. So, and we can always tell the U.S. government that the Philippines is already making changes in its laws, in its policies. So I hope that would, help us convince, the U.S. to, consider as well our position as far as tariffs are concerned.
So Attorney Lucille, you started this earlier. You were talking about some ways where we can benefit, the first sale concept, the unbundling. Are there other things being put on the table? Because I understand you are consulting for government. You are
for companies.
For companies, yes. So what are some of the things on the table that you think will help us navigate through or maneuver through these challenges?
Okay, as I said, there are ways to minimize the impact, but I'd like to highlight, as commented as well a while ago, that this is not applicable to all. So there may
It's
be
not one size fits all.
yes, there may be some actions, that may be applied to some but not to all, But as I said, and this is in coordination with our EY offices, there are a number of programs, even duty drawback, again, depending on the industry and certain restrictions that may be applied to the importations of the company. But what I'd like to highlight is we're not constrained just to accept whatever that tariff rate is. There are ways to minimize the impact.
All right. Attorney Victor, I wanted to ask you, there are other trade agreements that we have. How do we leverage these other trade agreements and maybe exemptions?
I'm coming from the point of view that the Philippines is positioned as a high exemption market when it comes to the Trump tariffs, as mentioned in the study of Dr. Aldaba. So given that situation, we can perhaps articulate globally that the Philippines is well positioned in terms of becoming a manufacturing or production site for a number of industries. And that aligns very much with the laws that we already have now. We've been hearing create and create more. These are laws that would cater to foreign investors that would like to set up shop in the Philippines, conduct their manufacturing activities here for exports, and in exchange of that, get incentives. So we could make use of those existing laws already as a starting point to really leverage on exemption. But the thing is, I think aside from the laws that we have, we also need to tap the executive to really iron out the details when it comes to the implementation of this law. And I think we've been seeing positive action both from the DOF and from DTI, because these are the offices that will be in charge of really providing or supplying the details to really make these sets of incentives attractive to the foreign market. If you go out and ask a foreign investor what convinces you or what prevents you from investing in the Philippines, they would not say that it's the taxes or the incentives that we have. It's really the uncertainties that bothers them and maybe keeps them from actually investing. So if we could iron out those things, we have the law, we have the help of trade, we have the help of finance. Hopefully, it sets out good for the Philippines.
When you talk to your clients, I wonder, Attorney Victor, where does the problem seem to lie? Is it in the national government level or the LGUs? And of course, the disconnect between the two when investors do business here.
Well, of course, I'm happy to sit with Neil and Bianca in this panel. But I would say, it's a pleasure for me to share what the community, the business community thinks about the situation. Going back to the uncertainties, no? Let's say if one company, let's keep it theoretical, if one company decides to invest thinking that it would enjoy certain incentives in accordance with what the law provides and what the implementing rules would show, that's a good thing. And investors actually come in for that. But oftentimes, say for example, when a company, that very same investor would experience, say for example, processes that are hard to go through or maneuver, or maybe tax audits that are hard to hurdle, customs audits, the same. Those challenges taken all together without singling out any of those factors could be a relevant consideration for them as well.
You're very diplomatic, Attorney Victor. We have heard of, the love letters from BIR. Alam mo na yan, you don't want to get a love letter from them. Or some would say when the fire department starts knocking and selling you their fire extinguisher, meron ka nang nabili bago, but it has to be from them. So I think it's but things I hope are moving in the right direction with ease of doing business, improving as well. But just to set the record straight, because it's very abstract. What would you say, Attorney Vic, is the percentage of your clients who decided to leave the Philippines or cancel an expansion because they were given a hard time? The numbers made sense, but the management did not. 10? Are you looking at 10%, 20?
Well, I'm happy to share that for the bigger companies that we assist, none of them have actually left the country for reasons that I have cited. There are, of course, discussions that are happening, but our duty, I feel like our duty as well as tax and global trade advisors to them, is to explain to them that these are things that are necessary, and the best thing to actually do to hurdle all of these processes is to become compliant. Because no matter what, if you are compliant with the laws and the rules, you will be successful with those audits and all. But again, going back, happy to share that no one has actually left because of that. I did hear about other instances, maybe, of course, we're not part of those discussions, but resounding back to the reasons that I have just cited could be the reasons for leaving.
All right. ASEC Neil Cabiles, Trump recently announced a tax on remittances.
Yeah.
Originally 5%, not as bad, 3.5 I think is where he ended. Have you done the math? What will the impact be of that on our OFWs?
Yes, we actually have the estimates are actually still being done right now in terms of that. But we have to take note that a large part of our remittances, our remittances sources rather, are actually quite diversified. So you have remittances coming from the Middle East and also from Europe, which could be able to actually let's say not necessarily compensate, but would actually be able to balance perhaps the threat that this excise taxes on remittances in the US if ever they do get implemented. However, what we are also looking at is on the policy perspective, the implementation of the excise tax is actually something that's administratively difficult to actually apply. There are actually ways wherein this could be, that this might be circumvented based on how you are seeing the way that the US system in terms of remittances is set up. So we are looking at that perhaps the excise tax would happen something like in the case of the tariffs that would also have a certain 90-day pause or something like that. But that doesn't preclude us, of course, from looking at what would be the impact for those coming from the United States.
Because for all intents and purposes, our great export product really is our talent. What about the BPO sector? Will this complicate that industry?
Well, of course, it will have a certain impact on your BPO sector. Given that there are remittances really from the BPO sector coming to that of the Philippines. So we are working together. We're actually doing consultations with ITBAP on this one into how the sector might be able to, how the industry might be able to prepare for this one should it really happen.
All right. Cyrus, hi. Why are you here?
You want the serious answer or the well,
why do you think Shed has a seat in this
okay, yeah. Maybe I'll preface my answer by saying that whenever we consider some activity in an economic system, oftentimes education would always be thrown into that bag of interventions, right? So regardless whether this is the reciprocal tariff by the US or any other new stuff that we see, oftentimes you will see education, some bullet point there, okay, that needs to be done. Now, having said that, on the higher education space, or for that matter, the education sector as a whole, right, there are two considerations that we need to keep in mind, okay? Now, first of all, whenever we talk about interventions in the education sector, there's always going to be a long timeline wherein we'll have to wait a bit before we can actually realize the benefits of any intervention that's being done. For example, if you're looking at higher education to do something, you'll have to wait 4 years before you'll actually get some reward from that intervention. Now think about it. After 4 years, you'll probably have a different US president by then. So would the intervention that you've started to do 4 years ago, would it still be relevant now? Okay, so that's the first consideration when you put education sector in the mix, right? The second consideration is that you have to look at the incentive system of the learner, okay, for that matter. In the field, we often call that as the rate of return of education for the learner, right? Without going through the complicated stuff about it, whenever we try to put interventions in the education sector, it is not only the institutions that are going to be affected, we also have to think on the decision calculus of every learner. Now, this would be the young ones. In the case of higher education, we would be talking about ages 18 to 22. But this would also be affecting everybody else, perhaps those in the early 20s, late 20s, even late 30s even, right? So now, if you want to do demand-side interventions, you want to think, what would incentivize these learners or these would-be learners to actually move into sectors that have been identified as strategic, as what Dr. Aldaba has mentioned in her paper, right? So now, okay, so those are the two considerations. And now I gravitate towards the main question that we have as to why, as to how the education sector would play out would be, is our labor supply adequate? Because now, if you look at the education market and the labor market, they're connected, but they're actually still distinct, right? The thing there is that we look at the quantity. Okay, do we have enough people to take care of the strategic sectors that we want to look into? Okay, maybe we don't. If the answer is no, then we have to wait like what, 4 years, maybe 2 if you want to look at it. But that's for higher education. Now, what about the quality of labor? I mean, do we have the right talent to actually lead the sectors eventually. So now you'll be looking at another prolonged timeline. Now, I think it, well, not to wash our hands, and it's okay to be critical with the Commission on Higher Education. But if ever that we want to have a more robust response to whatever is happening outside, I feel or we feel that the technical vocational education space, okay, that's managed by TESDA, would be much better positioned to actually respond to what is happening right now as far as the reciprocal tariffs is concerned. Because now, when you look at the duration of how to upskill or reskill the talent that's needed to be employed in these strategic sectors, for tech voc, you only need around 12 months at most. So that's a faster response time compared to when you go through the traditional education sector. You're taking about 4 years, maybe if you want to add 2 more years, 2 to 4 more years for graduate studies. It takes such a long time. Maybe that's to my last point here is that if ever education sector would be participating or contribute a lot to this matter, our role is really prophylactic in nature, right? We have to take a look at the whole economic system as a whole and then start identifying things that would really persist or be permanent for a long period of time. And only then we can make those necessary interventions in that space.
Cyrus, I want to add another layer to the question. Do you think we are graduating enough employable students, or are we graduating students with strong fundamentals?
Okay.
Beyond the numbers, talk to us about.
Okay. Now beyond the numbers, before coming to the forum, I did some spot checks with our own data, right? So the answer to that question is that really depends on the sector, right? So certain
let's do engineers.
Engineers, surprisingly, we're actually doing pretty well numbers wise. Okay, numbers wise. Quality wise, I think it's mixed. I've seen mixed signals. There are certain years that we have better quality than others. Okay, I think perhaps the biggest monkey wrench thrown into the system was the pandemic. So the quality sort of dipped. Like we've seen a lot of the academic institutions suffer a little bit. In fact, there's a backlog of around 1.5 to 2 years in terms of quality. So you have that. No, but overall, from the previous years, I think we've been doing well. Numbers-wise, we're doing well. Quality-wise, it's mixed. Some sectors are doing well. Some are not. Engineering, I think, is okay. But yeah, I mean, to that point, the answer is
we're okay.
Yeah, we're okay.
But we can't be just okay.
Correct. I mean, we shouldn't feel complacent
because we're not even in ground zero. Correct. We are a step below. 7 years ago, there was a study that showed the Philippines, with over 100 million strong population, produced 50,000 engineers. 50. That's from sanitary engineer, civil engineer, mechanical, 50,000. Half would go on to pass the board, become certified. Vietnam, 2 years before that, their numbers were showing they produce, and their population is much smaller than ours, they produce twice as many engineers. And we wonder why people are flocking to Vietnam. Tim Cook, and you can easily search this, of Apple said, "Why are we in China?" He said, "There's a confusion. You think we're in China for low cost? China stopped being low cost many years ago. We go to China because you go to any place and you say, if you're an engineer, raise your hand. You can fill football fields of engineers. In America, you can just fill one room. So it's all about the talent." So here's my forward question, Cyrus. I think your seat is very important here. What is your intervention today, a specific intervention today that you think will pay off significantly, that we will feel 4 years from now? One concrete intervention.
Let me check if I am authorized to disclose certain things. One specific intervention that can improve the quality of the output of our graduates, if you will, the quality of our graduates. Back then, one of the strategic initiatives of the Commission is internationalization. That's one. So we're now collaborating with a lot of institutions outside, more with the Philippines. You're seeing a lot of the efforts from the commissioners really coordinating with the other ministries abroad to actually get higher talent also through internationalization. That's one. Of course, there are the usual monetary side to things like putting in grants for research, right? And this is not only for CHED, but we have to collaborate also with other agencies like the OST for the science and technology space. We have to collaborate also with other boards in PRC to identify those professionals that really need those elevated levels of quality, right? But yeah, I mean, those are the things that I can shuffle through my memory right now.
All right.
That we're doing. Yeah.
But you're gonna have to remove Harvard from the partnerships for now, right? Because
yes, because of the foreign students, right?
That's 3 to 4 years. All right.
Harvard is one out of many, I think. And if you've taken a look at the education space globally, we're starting to see a very diverse landscape.
I heard, at least for Xavier School, what they're doing, what the parents are doing is they don't have their kids finish in Xavier School, then go to Harvard. What they do is from Xavier School, grade school, Xavier School, high school, they go to British School of Manila, mga international schools, and then the next is Hong Kong. They're saying a lot of these students are going to Hong Kong. So I guess my trend, they're seeing some bright spot there. Just very quickly, I think we're ready to open the floor to questions from the audience members. If you have burning questions, comments so far, we're halfway through. If you have questions on policy, what the government can do on the national level, local level, what they've done right so far, what else needs to be done, where they need to direct their attention. Do we have takers? We have a few minutes for questions. How about from the online community? We do. All right, sorry. They do, they message the questions here. So let me try to, sorry. Here, from Zoom. This is from Joseph Solis of PSA. Should the Philippines pursue a perpetual reinstatement of parity rights through constitutional amendment, extending beyond tariff exemptions and American entities to include allied countries? Who would like to take that? Repeat, okay. Should the Philippines pursue a perpetual reinstatement of parity rights through constitutional amendment, extending beyond tariff exemptions and American entities to include allied countries? All right. Bianca.
I think constitutional route is always the more difficult route, and there's an urgent need from our sector to already address. So the best way is to negotiate an agreement with the US now, because otherwise we cannot wait for our industries.
How many FTAs are we negotiating as we speak?
We're negotiating with UAE, EU, and ASEAN Canada. That's what I recall. Yeah.
Is a US-Philippine FTA on the table?
If US will agree, of course, we are happy to do it. It's also part of our request to the US to go bilateral FTA.
All right, so wait and see. We have another question here from one of our participants online. This is from Precious Love of NCCA. Why does the Philippines persist in anchoring its policies in Western frameworks despite their misalignment with our nation's unique realities? Can the country genuinely prioritize what is best for Filipinos, or does the shadow of colonial influence still shape our path? Malalim yun. Parang Miss Universe question. Who would like to take that? Okay, nagtuturoan. Ma'am, Attorney Lucy. Okay, si Miss Kim muna, and then the ladies. Go ahead, Miss Kim.
I would say our interest to negotiate an agreement with the US is part of our national interest. As you've seen, 15% of what we export to the world goes to the US, and if that decreases to a significant level, jobs will be affected. So I guess the answer is it's also to our national interest to negotiate an agreement with the US.
All right. Attorney Lucille?
of course, we consider no, the reality. So as I have been always taught, ibaba natin sa lupa yung nasa langit. No? Look at the details. Look at what is applicable to us so that because our best interest will be best served if, you know, we look at the reality. What's happening on the ground. Yeah.
All right. You know, clearly Trump's policies are very consequential. Consequential for prices, consequential for employment, consequential for foreign relations. So this is
Can I add one? It has been long said by DTI that industrial policy drives trade policy. So whenever we do trade negotiations, we consult industries, both exporters and importers. In fact, before we went to the US, we had, I think, 2 late night meetings. We were surprised. We called for a late night meeting at 10 in the evening, twice, and there are 100 companies that showed up. So that's how important this is for our industry.
And now the conversation is not just among companies, but Philippines Inc., Vietnam Inc., Thailand Inc., dealing with Trump Inc. So I wonder, what is the risk? Since everyone's saying we can be the net benefactor of Trump 2.0, we heard it from the first panel. What is the risk of us alienating our other trade partners? You know, we tried to please America so much to get this deal. And here's Vietnam saying, part of the ASEAN bloc, you're giving it so much away. And you know, you cannot fight with your neighbors so close to us. So any thoughts on this? How complicated this relationship is? If people think of us as disproportionately benefiting from the US tariffs, what are the chances that we see this backfire from China, from Vietnam, from Thailand? Your thoughts on this?
Start na lang.
Go ahead.
I think any action that we're going to take no, in connection with the Trump tariff, we should consider no, the actions of our neighboring countries, no, because it's possible that, for example, we are going to accept no investments here, but it's also possible that Trump, again, in the future, would change certain policies and rules that might, you know, disadvantage our position as far as tariff is concerned. No, so my view is it should not be a single approach that we should be using, but again, consider as well the actions that will be taken by our neighboring countries and align that no, to the extent possible that would benefit not just the Philippines, but ASEAN as a whole.
Just playing devil's advocate, medyo game theory to Is it smart for us to be negotiating with the rest of the ASEAN bloc with America? I mean, we stand to gain from this eh. Why would I want Vietnam na mababa pa yung kanya? So what's an interesting way to look at it? Sir Sinan, I think he's raising his hand. Maybe thoughts on this? If I were Philippines Inc., I'm like, no.
Comment. We already have RCEP.
There, okay, we have other, okay.
What we have to watch out for is because the other ASEAN countries are also impacted, right? So remember we have a free trade agreement.
Correct.
Okay? So 0-0 yan. So yung fear mo na ang China papasok sa Philippines, andyan. Yung fear mo na ang Vietnam will divert to the Philippines, andyan yan. Yung fear mo na yung Thailand papasok sa Philippines, andyan yan. So anong kailangan natin? Kailangan natin gamitin ng Pilipinas yung RCEP for our own offensive interests and make sure that we are not left behind insofar as RCEP is concerned. I mean, I think dapat alagaan natin yun.
Two things. Hindi lang pala Amerika ang dapat katakutan. We should watch all the players. And second thing, sir, how exactly do you suggest we leverage RCEP as offensive strategy?
Well, US is what? 15% of our exports. ASEAN is not far behind. Ilang percent tayo ngayon? More than 20. Okay. So all of these things we really have to realign. And remember, this is more long-term. FTA is rules-based. There is a time frame. Trumponomics is what, 4 years or whatever, kung saan siya. So we have to look longer term. We have to look longer term. You're right. We might be paying too much attention to the US. Of course, it's also substantive, but we have to be realistic about it, no? Ano talaga siya? Kung gusto niyang sectoral, kailangan natin pag-aralan anong sector ang itatapat natin sa kanya. But RCEP is already there. It's rules-based. The uncertainty with America is answered for by the certainty of a rules-based trade regime, for example, in RCEP and the other FTAs that we have.
All right. All right. Any more comments from our yes, we do have ma'am. Sir, from the back. Please identify yourself and direct your question.
Hello po, I am Patrick Rabi from the Academy, from PUP. My question is, I have a question in regards to the nature of these tariffs. Do we anticipate these tariffs to be of permanent nature? This is especially considering the fact that Trump is full of surprises, as is with the Liberation Day announcement, but he can also be capricious. I mean, these tariffs can change in 6 months from now. And this is also in consideration of the policy recommendations in regards to leveraging these tariffs. I mean, these are not implementable short term. They will only be effective long term. And so that in mind, what if, let's say, we are already implementing the policies to leverage these tariffs, then 9 months in, the US decided to change its mind and reverse these tariffs. Further, let us also consider that since these tariffs are limited on goods, should we focus or develop further our capacity on exporting goods or should we also focus on services since these are left untaxed, and isn't focusing more on services more certain, considering that again, we have no certainty in regards to what is the nature or how long would these tariffs last. Thank you.
All right. Who would like to take that? Miss Bianca.
I don't think anyone knows what Trump will think in the next few days.
In the next few minutes.
But I guess the best we can do, again, under the Philippine Export Development Plan for 2023-2028, we really emphasize that it's a VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And we cannot basically predict everything that will happen in the global trade environment. What's crucial is for us to, again, support local industries, to industrialize, and to provide firm level support, meaning we have to empower individual firms to be able to compete internationally. So I think that's the focus of the DTI and the whole exporting community.
Actually, I'm trying to load. May bagong balita na naman about Trump. But what's new? That is only expected. I think we have to wrap up. So one final question. So our goal here is to come up with actionable recommendations na pwede nating isubmit as proposals. So hypothetically, there is a proposal for the Philippines to form a Trade Industrial Transformation Council to respond to evolving trade pressures. Okay? So the 5 members here will have their hand in creating that council. Based on your expertise, where you're coming from, how should that council look like? Again, it's a Trade Industrial Transformation Council to help the country respond very agile to evolving trade pressures. Number 1, firing squad na lang. Attorney Victor, who should lead that council?
Well, first of all, I think it should be composed of both the government and the private sector.
All right.
Okay? And
So
within the
public-private.
private sector, there should be various industries
represented.
Even to the extent of involving advice.
Parang PASAC. Senior Advisor Council of the
Something
President.
like that. Because my imagination is that this issue, the situation that we have, is very fluid. It's not a linear 17%, over 10 years? Because time and time again, we are going to think of solutions like negotiation, diba? Relocation, attracting more investments. But if
So
we
many
are
moving parts.
successful in doing that, doesn't that allow the US or Mr. Trump to just adjust the tariffs, and it will change the whole ball game altogether? So I think there should be a body, as nicely pointed out in the paper by by Dr. Aldaba, that there should be a body that is capable of being quickly formed, composed of the government, private sector, advisors, to look at these issues on a regular basis, because these issues are going to keep changing. So these members of the council should be there to quickly respond.
Members does this council have?
I really don't know, but it can be an evolving
All right.
type of composition.
Ms. Kim, who should head this council?
Of course, my bias would be the
DTI. All right, go ahead.
that there are already several councils that were established. For example, Export Development Council, now the Tatak Pinoy Council. I think what's more crucial is to ensure that this council, whether that council or councils, is empowered to act on doing this.
Maybe that's the problem, Ms. Kim. There are so many councils.
And so the necessary resources to implement.
Cyrus seems to agree. Go ahead, your thoughts, Cyrus.
When you pose that question, the bubble that came to my mind, another council, for somebody like me who attends gazillions of interagency committees and meetings and all that, I want to challenge the assumption of the question. I mean, what's the problem that this Trade Industry Transformation Council is supposed to solve?
Maybe it should be the super council.
Okay, now.
Everybody else, wala na, just
Okay,
the council.
That was the first thing that came to mind. That's a very unfiltered comment, right? But to that point, okay, now I'd like to have faith in the existing bureaucracy that we have. I think it's just a matter of getting things done really well, right? Not to mention that with the talent that we have already in government, it's quite limited, no? So I think we just have to do things really well. Now, to the question regarding who's going to head it, I have no opinion about that. I don't want to get canceled. Okay, so I'm probably not gonna say anything, but what I'm sure it's not Chin. So I think that we're sure about that.
No, you never know.
No, wag na. Too many interagency meetings.
How about ASEC? How much budget should this council get?
Well, actually, I'll begin first with a very frank opinion about councils. The problem with councils is, unfortunately, they sometimes end up as talk shops.
Oh.
That's the problem. So I think if we are perceiving or we're looking at the council, I think what's important is we should first look at if there are overlapping duties or responsibilities of various councils already, and how we will be able to actually merge this and be able to create what really is the clear work plan of a council. Because I think we've had a lot of councils, and oftentimes people get distracted on the issues that they're supposed to discuss. So if we want a council, let's first define what that council wants, what that council has to do, what duties and responsibilities there is of this particular council, and how it actually creates a certain value add before we actually proceed to that. Now, to answer on the question on the budget, I don't have much of an idea of what the budget is really for this one, because we don't know what the scope of the council is yet. We don't know what the membership is composed of yet. But if there is anything about having to do with this council, I think the good direction would be this would be a council that would actually have really this holistic way or holistic view of actually supporting our export sector. That, for example, your foreign policy, your trade policy is actually very much supported with, for example, fiscal policy itself. Like you have very good laws in terms of tariffs and everything else, and of course you have create more, but there's a need for the infrastructure and other support facilities. And I think that's what the role of that council would be.
All right, as the council is slowly taking shape, more questions than answers. Attorney Lucille, what do you hope is the first order of business for this council?
I hope, no,
Concrete order of
first and foremost, I agree to have that council, and we can leverage and take advantage of the presence of the many councils that we have right now. So maybe, take members from those councils, and the first order of the day is to come up with a concrete plan on how we would take advantage of the opportunities that we have under this Trump tariff and to address risk and concerns.
All right, tall order. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause, please, for our panel number 2. Attorney Lucille, Asek, Cyrus, Miss Kim, and Attorney Victor. Please stay on stage. We have a class picture. We would like to request Dr. Orbeta, of course, Dr. Fita, and Assistant Governor Gonzalez to please join them on stage for a quick photo opportunity. All right. All right. One more. Okay, one more. All right, one more, ladies and gentlemen. Around, and of course, our hosts today, BSP and PIDS. At this point, we'd like to request Dr. Fita Aldaba to rejoin us on stage for a synthesis. For all that was said today, information overload, she's going to help us make sense of things. Yusek Fita, Dr. Fita, you're joining us, ma'am, for synthesis, no? All right. We'd like to request our, here na. All right. Just so we're clear on the key takeaways, ma'am, please. The floor is yours.
Thank you all so much for staying with us. And just to summarize the highlights of today's discussions, for smaller economies like the Philippines, the Trump tariffs present a strategic opportunity to attract investment and integrate deeper into reconfigured supply chains, but only if the country reforms quickly to offer reliable infrastructure, skilled labor, and industrial policy that would position the Philippines as a trusted, tariff-resilient production hub. And to avoid marginalization, the Philippines must pursue export diversification beyond the US and China. We need to align our trade and industrial policy for value upgrading, strengthen our trade defense tools, for example, anti-dumping, countervailing duties, safeguards, and deepen our ASEAN collaboration to buffer geopolitical and tariff volatility. In ASEAN, there is a geo-economic task force that has recently been formed, and the Philippines is part of this task force along with the other 9 member countries. And this was formed to assess the impact of the reciprocal tariffs and how best to position ASEAN member states. And in the presentation by Rodrigo a while ago, he emphasized that the new US trade policy is going to stay. And he also highlighted that the Philippines is well positioned to take advantage of the opportunities, except for some intellectual property concerns. And of course, we are aware that the Philippines has been working hard to strengthen its intellectual property protection law implementation. And in fact, amendments to our IP law are currently being discussed to make it more responsive to new technologies, as well as to align it with our focus on innovation. And for our trade officials, they have been actively discussing with the USTR. Of course, we want to have an FTA with the US. For the panel discussions, they focused on how industries are reacting to Trump tariffs and highlighted the need for government action on the following crucial factors. One, industrial policy implementation and pursue more in our industrialization goal. And of course, the Tak Pinoy and create more were mentioned as really critical in terms of pursuing these efforts. And let me also share that the Tatak Pinoy IRR was already approved. This was done last year during the time of former DTI Secretary Fred Pascual. What hasn't been completed as of the moment is the formation of the Tatak Pinoy Council, but the government representatives have already been identified, meetings have already been conducted. They're just in the process of nominating the private sector representatives. And currently, we're of course waiting for the presentation of the Tatak Pinoy strategy. Now, going back to the highlights for our individual industries, garments and agriculture were mentioned as industries that are at most risk. Garments and electronics and semiconductor are seeing some opportunities. For garments, for as long as our reciprocal tariffs are lower than our competitors, the industry can still survive. That's from Conweb's Ms. Marites Agoncillo. And she also mentioned technology is not going to replace human hands. And I think that's a very important point. For electronics, they are building various scenarios amid the US-China tension and current trade fragmentation. And according to SAPI, they are seeing a 2% uptick, but a reduction of orders coming from the US. And for the second panel, of course, the Philippine government must urgently align our trade and industrial policy by scaling high-trust sectors like electronics, deepening supply chain integration, streamlining investment and export procedures, and rapidly upgrading our skills through industry-academe partnerships that would attract and retain reconfiguring global value chains. Without swift and proactive policy implementation, the Philippines risks being merely a passive beneficiary. Of course, you don't want to be a collateral damage as well in all that's what's happening. So we have to be a strategic player in the ongoing global trade realignments. Persistent product concentration and unaddressed structural vulnerabilities could severely limit future economic resilience and constrain our participation in high-value, global value chains. And by adopting targeted policy and institutional measures that are grounded in digital readiness, sectoral upgrading, and strategic positioning, the Philippines can establish itself as a credible alternative hub for digitally enhanced, service-integrated, and geopolitically trusted exports. trade and mention was also made with respect to the suggestion to form a Trade and Industrial Policy Council and how this will interface with other councils, how to address risks and concerns and other more detailed responsibilities of the council needs to be defined. And our colleagues at the House of Representatives are actually looking into it. Moreover, I would also want to highlight the deeper coordination with our ASEAN neighbors, which can amplify regional bargaining power, harmonize rules of origin, and mitigate the risks of trade deflection and industrial crowding. Such deliberate urgency, coupled with integrated domestic reform and regional collaboration, industrial upgrading, and resilience building measures, these are all critical to seizing opportunities before the competitive advantage window closes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fita Aldaba. And now to finally conclude, let's call back on stage the man who brought us all together this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in warmly welcome back on stage PIDS President Dr. Aniceto Orbeta Jr. Hi, sir.
Distinguished guests, esteemed speakers, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's both an honor and a privilege to join you here at the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas and to our colleagues virtually through Zoom and Facebook Live in this very productive gathering of insight. I sincerely thank the BSP led by Governor Dr. Eli Rimbolona, Deputy Governor Zeno, Ronald Abenoja was here this morning, and of course for Assistant Governor Margarita Maggie Gonzalez, Dibuki Gonzalez, for graciously hosting us and co-organizing this event with PIDS. As we bring this forum to a close, I am reminded of our shared recognition of both the challenges and the opportunities that lie ahead, and more importantly, of our collective commitment to build a future of resilience and prosperity for the Philippines. We have gathered at a time marked by complexity, yet rich in possibility. Positive ako. Today's discussions have underscored how the global economy is undergoing profound transformation, driven by shifts in trade policies, rapid technological advancement, and rising geopolitical tensions. These dynamics demands not only vigilance, but also vision. Navigating this uncertain environment requires a united effort marked by clarity, adaptability, and resolve. In this context, the issuance of the U.S. Executive Order 14257, which imposes 10% blanket tariff on all U.S. imports and may increase to 17% for the Philippines, adds further urgency. The research presented by PIDS Emeritus Research Fellow Dr. Rafaelita Aldaba is thus both timely and vital. Her study outlines forward-looking strategies from industrial upgrading and logistics streamlining to position the Philippines as a competitive export hub and diversifying our product and market base. Our discussion today have been enriching, reminding us of the fragility of global trade systems and necessity strategic and proactive adaptation. As we assess our economic landscape, we see both headwinds and opportunities. Inflation has eased to 1.4 as of April 2025, creating a more stable environment for households and businesses. The peso has strengthened, averaging 55.7 to the US dollar. Meanwhile, total external trade posted a 9.6 year-on-year growth on March 2, 2025, with electronics continuing to lead the way. Earlier this year, PIDS projected a GDP growth of 6.1 for 2025, driven by stable remittances, improved employment, easing inflation, and election-related spending. Yet the World Bank recently adjusted its outlook to a 5.3% growth, citing global trade uncertainties. This divergence is sobering and reminder. While our economic fundamentals remains good, external risks continue to cast long shadows. The plight of our garment sector, facing stiffer tariffs than regional competitors like Vietnam and Bangladesh, is but one example. In facing these challenges, we must remain steadfast, building a resilient and inclusive middle class. This segment of the society is the foundation of economic stability and long-term growth. It drives consumption, anchors social cohesion, and fuels investments. To expand this middle class, we must confront systemic inequalities, strengthen education and upskilling, and foster an environment where businesses, especially small and medium enterprises, can flourish. The private sector also has a crucial role to play, not merely as an economic driver, but as a partner in innovation, job creation, and nation building. Public-private collaboration will be essential to unlocking the full potential of our industries and achieving broad-based sustainable growth. Above all, our most valuable resource is our people. As a skilled, adaptable, and empowered workforce is our greatest strategic asset in an era of digital transformation and interconnected global markets. Education, lifelong learning, and workforce development are not optional but imperative. We must not forget that people find solutions and implement them. At the core of this lies the importance of policy-based research. In times of uncertainty, it serves as our compass, anchoring decisions in evidence and guiding us towards long-term inclusive progress. Institutions like PIDS are pivotal in translating data into direction and insights into impact. PIDS helps equip policymakers, industry leaders, and stakeholders with tools to make informed and effective decisions. In this regard, I extend my gratitude to Dr. Aldaba for her valuable research, deepening our understanding of our competitive advantages and vulnerabilities. I would also like to thank the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas for co-organizing this dissemination activity with PIDS. Allow me to recognize and thank our distinguished speakers and panelists for sharing their insights and expertise. Mr. Rodrigo Balbutin, Mr. Christian Dave Bael, Dr. Sergio Ortiz Luis Jr., Attorney Lucille Becerra, Mr. Bobby Batung Bakal, Ms. Marites Foxon Agoncillo, Attorney Victor De Dios, Mr. Saros Palo Buenafe, Assistant Secretary Neil Adrian Cabelis, and Bianca Pearl Skitty. Sorry. Your contributions have illuminated the path forward and will help ensure that the ideas we explored today translate into meaningful actions. As I conclude, I invite each one of us to continue serving with purpose and shared sense of responsibility. The policies we design, the insights we exchange, the partnership we cultivate will shape the trajectory of our nation. Let us think boldly, act decisively, and remain committed to ensuring that the Philippines will not only withstand the challenges of a changing world, but emerge stronger, more resilient, and ready to ride the wave of change. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Dr. Orbeta. So here we are in this sunny mid-May morning in post-midterms Philippines, living in Donald Trump's world of uncertainty. Maybe the great lesson of 2025 is this: to expect the unbelievable. What other implausible sounding things could happen this year? What other wild cards are out there? And how do we navigate the shift when the shift is still shifting? Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, there are no easy answers, but it is our hope, my hope, our hope, that Philippines Inc. is getting ready or is ready to rise to meet the moment. Thank you again to all of our speakers and panelists for sharing their valuable insights, and thank you for being part of this important conversation. Please stay with us. This is hybrid forum, so please do stay with us for a few more closing reminders. For our over 300 Zoom participants, dozens of Facebook viewers, kindly take a moment to please complete our feedback survey form. The link is now available right in your chat box. Once you submit the survey, your e-certificate of participation will be emailed to you. For those joining us on site, we encourage you to please don't forget to drop off your completed feedback survey at the registration booth. So in exchange, you will get a conference giveaway that PIDS prepared for us, sort of a special gift. Do stay connected with the Institute. Follow PIDS on Facebook, Twitter, now X, and YouTube for latest updates. You can also visit the PIDS website for more information. Don't forget, if you took photos, if you want to share your commentaries, your experience, your thoughts, please do make noise online. Don't forget to use our hashtags officially, hashtag PIDSXBSP Forum, hashtag ASEAN Trade, and hashtag Clarifying Talks in your social media posts. We'd love to see and share your insights. We look forward to welcoming you at our future PIDS events. Just check out the PIDS events webpage to see what's coming up next. And before, do we have one more class picture taking? No more na. We do. So this is the only thing getting in the way of lunch. Before we officially break for lunch, we'd like to invite everyone to join us for a group photo. Maybe the photographer will stand here, no? So we'd like to request all of our audience members to stand up, move closer to the center. We don't like spaces. We want to seem like it's a packed, it is indeed a packed show. And we'd like to request Dr. Orbeta, Assistant Governor Gonzalez, and Dr. Aldaba, and our BSP officials. Please stand here, front line in the middle. And our panelists as well, stay in front. Everybody else, please move forward. You know what they say, picture or it never happened. So you have to make sure you are seen in the picture. All right. Compress, please. Kita ba lahat? Dito na lang ako sa side. Derek, you tell us what to do. Kita ba? You need a chair? No, okay. All right. Yung mga nasa likod, kita, Derek. All right. Everyone, make sure kita kayo. I'll count. All right. No? 1, 2, 3. One more, Everyone can be seen? Yes. All right. All right. One final, but we'd like to request everyone to shout hashtag Clarifying Talks. Okay? So ano to? Ready? Hashtag Clarifying Talks. Hashtag Clarifying Talks. Direct, ready? 1, 2, 3. Hashtag Clarifying Talks. Woo! I'm so we don't after. One more. Let's do it, please. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Hashtag Clarifying Talks. Thank you again. A round of applause for the organizers, our panelists, and to our participants. Thank you again, once again. This has been Mimi Ong. It has been an absolute pleasure to be with you this morning. Thank you. Have a good lunch, and we'll see you in our next events. Have a great afternoon, everybody. How was it? It was okay.
So good.
you.